appear in our records. It does not exist.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to 1 week later, Tales from the Archives. I am Grayson of Mortis FM. With me are three other very awesome guys. Will, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll go down in order.
Hey, I'm awesome guy number 2, Will.
I'm awesome guy number 3, Seth from Beyond the Dune Sea.
And I'm just a dude. I'm Connor from Beyond the Dune Sea.
Oh, you're awesome guy number 4.
No.
You're more
Everybody
than a
is
dude.
awesome guy
You're
number
more than a
1.
dude in my heart.
It's 1A and then some other form of whatever. But we are back, like I said, a week later. Want to thank y'all for people who have been following along in our Thrawn trilogy. I got sick last week, and Seth is a little sick today, but he's a trooper and he's pushing through. So people in the chat, please send Seth some. He's got his blankie.
I got my Spider-Man blanket.
I know.
I got my tissues.
There you go.
I got my water. We're gonna do this. There's a reason why I'm not in the studio.
He's got his own castle on Joe Mark, aka that room.
So he's surviving. He's surviving out there.
He's surviving.
We got a little, and by the way, if anybody notices, we got a little bit of glitch over there. Seth's out in the outer rim, so but you'll be able to hear him just fine. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not an issue. So yeah, we are covering part 1 of the second book of the Thrawn trilogy, Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn. First 15 chapters, but before we get into it, we're doing a little giveaway. So I'm going to boot that up here. We're going to announce the winner at the end of the stream. So I think you have to be here when we announce the winner. So I'm going to do this for the first time. This giveaway tool. That's a signed copy of Heir to the Empire. Timothy Zahn, the man himself.
Show it off. Show it off.
Pull out that signature.
Look at this. Look at this. It's right here. I got it signed myself. Timothy Zahn. Now look, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. We need to be upfront about this. This copy has some history. It's an old library copy. So it's not in mint condition, but, it's well loved. It's in okay condition, but it has been signed by the man himself. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
This was actually the copy I read for our for when we did Air. So
hey, it's passing of the torch. Even if you've already read Air, it can sit on your shelf quite nicely. So before we get started, I'm going to try to do this giveaway tool thing. I believe how it works is y'all will have to put in the comments a hashtag. And man, I didn't decide a hashtag. What should the hashtag be, guys?
What's that?
Tales from the Archives.
I don't know. I was thinking hashtag sardonic because it's the most used word in these books. We'll just do hashtag TFTA giveaway. How about that?
That sounds good. Will that work for all 3 of our chats? Do you know?
I believe it will. God, I hope so. Technology.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
But I'm going to start collecting comments. It'll run until the end of the stream. I'm doing it now. Okay. Hashtag TFTA giveaway, all one word. It is running. Type it in the chat, and we will announce the winner at the end of the stream. All right.
I'll put it in our chat so you guys can see it. TFTA.
Yes.
Giveaway, but I can't win, so don't let me win. But there you go. That's what you got to type.
Yep. Exactly. Just like that. Perfect. We've got 2 entries. Technically, you are entered, Connor. So
if I win, we'll just
I'll just draw again.
Run it back.
Yeah. So put it in the chat.
Another one.
Another one. It will probably announce it in probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's usually how these streams last. Some of these summaries are a little bit lengthier. So right before the stream, though,
you may announce it in like 45 minutes, but you don't know if you're not here. So stay in here.
It's true. Have it in the background, just even if you're listening ambiently. Seth, right before the stream started, you were saying nothing happens in this book so far. Explain yourself.
It's a fact.
How is that a fact?
Nothing happens.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Nothing happens.
I cannot.
We're just
disagree more.
Because I'm on the back. I'm on the back half, and guess what? Wheels are moving. People are doing stuff.
Hey, you wait. Cool. You're not supposed to have read that yet. Get out of here.
I have to.
Yeah,
we're off a week.
They were off a week. Yeah, I would have gotten ahead myself, but yeah, I disagree. But you know, that's okay. That's what we're here for. What is everybody else thinking so far, at least from the first half of Dark Force Rising? I know, Connor, this is your first time reading it, correct?
This is my first time reading this one. Yes,
Same.
I'd read Air a few times, but I'd never actually finished the trilogy. Not because I didn't want to, but because I just, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've read this book.
Yeah.
I'm with my man Seth here. I like the setup. I feel like we got a lot of chess pieces being moved, but there's nothing really to
bite on.
In.
Yep.
But I don't say that as a negative. I think that we're at the beginning of that act 2 of this full story of Air, Dark Force Rising, Last Command. And kind of typically in that beginning of act 2, you get chess pieces moving.
There's no Battle of Hoth.
You got a couple things. Yeah, that's right. That's the main thing. Like, there's no Battle of Hoth. There's no it doesn't start bombastically.
Yeah.
There's
everybody
really
separates, but yeah.
But I wouldn't go so far as to say nothing happens. There are a couple chapters where we get some awesome drops of like, whoa, okay, this is where the story's headed. I really like those chapters. Not to say I didn't like the other chapters. I really have been enjoying it. It's just, it's the beginning of the second act. So we're just we're moving things in places. And sometimes, that's not the most, it doesn't give you as much to sink your teeth into. I guess what I'm saying is, like, with Air, you're getting all these new characters introduced to you, the lore drops and what's going on with this person and this person. And here it's like, okay, we know everybody. Now let's just get everybody moved toward that act 2 climax, if you will. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. Really like it. Just not as much to sink your teeth into as Air, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get you. Will, how you feel?
Having read this, as opposed to how I feel about Air, I feel like we said a lot of it when we talked about Air last time, especially me. A lot of how I see Air in my head is the panels from the comics, and I think it benefits the book. For Dark Force Rising, I 100% prefer the comics.
Yeah,
it's so much more succinct, and I know that's because it's a comic, but like, it's kind of the opposite of how the book is, of like, everything is very totally like, there's big spikes and then there's a lot of like plateauing. The comic is just, it's a regular Star Wars comic where there's stuff going on all the time. And for a ADHD child like myself, I like my Star Wars big and flashy. And as much as I enjoy the book, going back and like rereading it a second time, going back and being like, oh, actually, I'm going to see how this looks in the comic again. The comic is so much fun, dude.
I will say also, so I've got the comic, and often when I'm reading, I'll be like, I'm curious what this looks like, or compare it to what I see in my head. And I'm actually surprised, at least with Dark Force Rising, pretty much everything that I have referenced looks exactly the way I envision it in my head, which I do think it is good. Like, I'm like, oh wow, I do think they like. I know we're not talking about the comics, but it is worth mentioning. I believe the artists changed between Air to the because like Luke has his green lightsaber, whereas in the Air it's all like the light blue. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
See, I didn't read the comic this time around like I did with Air. That's now I wish I had.
It's
cool.
It's worth just like at least going through there and like seeing the scenes, like you said, they're a lot more succinct. Of like it's cutting out a lot of fluff that I'm like, oh well, yeah, okay, like it makes sense. So maybe when we do if we do like a wrap up thing, it'd be worth kind of going over the comic as well. But yeah, so far
I liked how things were drawn out. Believe me, I wasn't saying that as a negative. I like those little character moments where we get to learn about what somebody's thinking and stuff like that. Like it, so don't take that as a negative. I like that about this.
There's definitely times where you're sitting there and you're like, man, I'm really like a big scene will happen. There's one off the top of my head that like it's just was my one of my favorite scenes in these books thus far, and I'm like, man, like they haven't followed up with it yet, and I'm like, can we just get there, dude? Like, I'm so ready for it. I agree with you. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the summaries here.
Let's do it.
We left off in Heir to the Empire. Big cliffhanger. Akbar was being accused of treason. That was the last point Now we're hopping right into the thick of it. Chapter 1. We start off with Thrawn and his forces. They are raiding Talon Karrde's former base on Merkur, and they find it abandoned except for just a ton of Isilamiri. As this is happening, Mara, Karrde, and one of the tech guys, Aves, watches the Chimera from a nearby asteroid. Thrawn has a hunch, Thrawn being Thrawn, and calls an interdictor to surprise them. If in the case that they are there, he's not sure, but he knows that Karrde is drawn to information. But Mara is having some instincts, some premonitions, and they're able to get away pretty successfully. But Thrawn asks for recommendations from the general that raided the base, Covell, regarding the operation on Tantus, and deploys some surveillance in the nearby city of Hilliard. Sabaoth keeps pestering Thrawn about Luke and Leia. Thrawn decides that he only needs Sabaoth for one more operation, and that Luke has a little bit more time to show up to Jomark due to the political turmoil that they have actually planted a little bit in the High Council. So that's kind of a drop right there. He also decides to remove the Nogri from the assignment of kidnapping Leia. We cut over to Joruus, who is waiting in the high castle of Jomark, and senses a flicker in the Force. But some of the Imperials pick him up for one more operation on Tanab. So juicy, heavy first chapter here.
Yeah.
A lot of perspectives. The first thing that I'll say, and Will said this a while back, when we were covering Air, I'm just glad, not as much as I've hoped. I'm just glad we're getting some more Mara content in this. But yeah, what do y'all think so far?
Hey, Seth.
She's clearly his favorite character.
Yeah.
You think Zahn's
Yes.
favorite character?
Yes. She
Really?
gets all the cool stuff. She does.
Does she?
She gets to be the coolest.
I mean, she is
the most cinematic, that's for sure.
And she gets the best story out of all of them, at least as far as I am in it.
We haven't gotten to some of the plot threads yet. She's the most interesting part to me, but she connects back to the original trilogy in a different way than the others do, and so that's why I think that he can have the most fun with her. It's true.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I do think for me as well, almost right there with her, Sabaoth is extremely interesting to me. Anytime we get a Sabaoth chapter,
he's just not in it much. That's
so far, no.
Yeah. Hey, neither was Darth Vader in the original trilogy. Yeah, here we are.
Wow.
I think the Sabaoth scene that we get here is really interesting to me because it's the first time in the story, and even in the first 15 that we read here, that you see from his point of view.
Yes.
And I think it's cool that we get this little, in this first chapter, we get every villain's point of view for a moment.
Yeah.
Except for Thrawn. I don't know if we ever get to, because I've not read the rest, if we ever get a scene from Thrawn's point of view, like in his head. I actually hope not, because that makes him more interesting, I think. But it was cool. It was cool to hear from Sabaoth's point of view and hear, like, already sowing the seeds that this guy's crazy. Like he can't put two and two together in his own head, and that's a really cool aspect. And not to spoil it later on, but later in these chapters, like Luke even points that out. He's like, "Man, I think this guy's just nuts.
Yeah, this guy's insane.
He's just crazy." The other thing I really liked from this was I liked how Thrawn gets to have two moments in this first half. The first one's here where he makes a really educated guess that, Karrde is hidden behind that asteroid, right? And this is always a worry with me when you have the super smart guy in a story.
Yes.
Like, okay, the writer also needs to be super smart because, the villain's intelligence can only be as intelligent as the person writing it. And luckily, Zahn is a very smart guy. He's a physicist, all these things. And I like that later on in this story, he makes another educated guess, but he's wrong.
Wrong. I was going to say that exact same thing.
That's awesome. I love that about a good smart guy writing, is even if you're smart doesn't mean you don't get things wrong, because he makes a really good guess later in the story. It just is the wrong direction.
And as a reader, I was confused about it, because I was like, wait, Thrawn is at least so far the guy who very sparsely has gotten anything wrong. And so, like, when that happened, I'm reading it, I was like, wait, no, they're going here. And like, is this a mess up? And then later on, it's addressed, and I'm like, that's okay, good. Like, Zahn didn't make Thrawn just this omniscient being, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That is, I think, a mark of a well-written character right there. And so I like in the beginning, you get the threat that this guy is good. You know, he can make some guesses and he can be right. And then as you get to the middle of the story, like, yeah, but, you know, he's not perfect. And that's how you can win. You know, that's how.
The little flaws.
That was my main note from the first chapter here. I just like hearing all the POVs, and I really like that bit of foreshadowing, if you will, if you can call it that he's really good at, you know, being a tactician, but he can get things wrong from time to time. So
yeah, which is pretty sick. Yeah. At first I was like, when it started off with Pelion and Thrawn, I was like, okay. I was like, I was kind of more intrigued to see where the whole like New Republic stuff was going. Very quickly that changed. I'm like, okay. I mean, do y'all have any other thoughts before I jump into chapter 2?
What do you think, Will?
Just to go off of Connor's point, I mean, it makes sense why they're both Zahn's characters, and Zahn, like you talk about Filoni having his favorite action figures to play with in Star Wars. Like, I really enjoy how both Zahn and Mara are having premonitions about the same thing, but in different ways, where are not Thrawn, not Zahn, but Thrawn's
I was like,
Thrawn's having the premonitions based on his education and his intellect. And Mara, as much as she is very smart and battle ready, a lot of hers is because of her ability through the Force. And obviously Thrawn doesn't have that. So them both working off of playing that 3D chess, but with different abilities built into it, where I just think that's kind of cool, where Thrawn has the upper hand a lot of times because of his experience and his being a wartime admiral, but and being built throughout the Galactic Empire. But then you look at somebody like Mara, who's built through the Galactic Empire a different way, but also has the ability of the Force. And I think that's funny that you bring it up, Connor, where the point where Thrawn is wrong, you really don't see that a lot of the time when it comes to, and this is more for all of Star Wars, when it's a premonition through the Force. So I do think that that's cool too, that when it's like, oh, I have a gut feeling maybe this is incorrect, or we got to get, or the Han Solo, I have a bad feeling about this, when it's based in the Force for somebody like Obi-Wan or Luke Skywalker or Ahsoka. When it comes to Mara having that, and then versus Thrawn, who is making decisions based on what he knows and trying to guess ahead. It's a very cool 50-50 yin and yang with two characters that Zahn has the hand over.
That is cool. I didn't even think about that. That's a great point.
Yeah, Seth?
What I really like too is like the fact that so the Emperor dies, Thrawn finds his place in the world. The Emperor dies, Mara Jade's spending all this time now trying to find her place in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting that you're seeing both sides of the coin, kind of like piggybacking off of what you just said, Will. And I think those are why they're the two that are written the best, because they have the most to chew on, if you will. Instead, Han Solo's over here just like, I guess I'll quote stuff that I did in the movies. Ooh, yeah. Like,
I think he gets a little more to do in this book so
slightly.
far.
So far.
A little bit. But anyway, so there you go.
I know I'm jumping ahead here, but just like the stuff we get with Luke, we'll talk about it. But I think he actually is starting to get a really interesting character arc as well.
I agree. Yeah. I'm gonna, before we get too far, we haven't even checked in with the chat yet. So I'm gonna just go for some more recent stuff. We've got Chillin' Villain. Hello. Is that a tattoo? That's pretty sick. Is that a dare? I don't know. Is that like the meme of like the dog with like the Daredevil mask? If so, it's funny. If not,
playing in the background.
Yeah. Let's see. Quillen Voss, what's going on, buddy?
Hello.
Does anyone else thought that Lady Vader weird on the ears? I like it when I hear like obviously Mark doing the like Kavarak kind of Nogri voice. It's got a certain like chill to it, I would say.
Lady Vader.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Whoa.
I mean, hey, I'm no Mark, but
yes. What's going on, Seth?
Is it Malari Ush? Is that what it is? Is that what
what's
cooler? Is that cooler or is Muad'Dib cooler? What's the better alien title, guys? I want to hear it.
I just realized it is very similar.
It is. That's all I think every time I hear it. That I'm like Muad'Dib.
I mean, man, it's the Dune Star Wars likenings right there.
Yep, right there.
I like the Lady Vader thing because it's Lord is the masculine, Lady is the feminine.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's neat to think about a time when that was just the dude's name, Darth, Vader, or Vader, Darth.
You'll never win, Darth.
Guys, what's Vader's last name?
Yeah, right.
Galactic Cantina, what's going on, man? When I read books, I imagine it as a Clone Wars type of animation. I often do as well. I don't know if y'all do. Just kind of depend. When we read Dark Disciple, I definitely did. Like that was like all I could think of. But with this, it's like I don't know. It's like so many different images of like you see things from movies, but then you see things like it's like this weird hodgepodge to me.
Yeah. I can't get it out of my head that Talon Card looks like Vizago from Rebels. I don't know why it's there.
He sounds like him. Yeah.
I know. I think that's why. It's just, I know that he's not an alien, but in my head, every time I hear his voice, that's the dude I picture.
There's a certain character that we will get to later that canonically looks a lot like the comic book version of Talon Card, but like the book version of Talon Card is described as a lot different for some reason.
He's got like long hair, right?
Yeah, which I've always been like, which is weird because they like make it a point to be like, oh, his short, like, clean, suave hair. So I'm like, every time Seth says it, Antonio Banderas.
He's Antonio Banderas from Desperado.
Yeah.
Or he's Puss in Boots.
Right, exactly.
One of the two.
Alrighty, but thank y'all for being here. We have 21 people viewing right now.
Hey, before we move on, let's remind the homies here, in case you're new, giveaway, #TFTA giveaway at the end of the stream, signed copy. Hold on, can I get to it?
Yep.
Signed copy, hardcover, Heir to the Empire, signed by Timothy Zahn. So if you're new in the chat, #TFTA giveaway.
There's history there in that copy.
Indeed.
Chapter 2, get a little bit of Luke stuff. Luke is hanging around waiting for his X-Wing to be repaired due to his ship being damaged, or a lot of the ships being damaged in Slew Isfan. He checks up on Lando, who's been able to be treated for his wound, his minor wound or whatever, but it's not really that big of a deal. Lando... this part's funny. He ends up like smelling the specific spice on Luke and recognizes that that it's familiar to him, and so they realize that there is a old associate that Lando knows by the name of Niles Ferrier, who is on the station as well. They track him down. They confront him and some of his thugs, and he's stealing ships for the Empire. Luke and Lando let them go and send them, basically give them a tip to another place where he can get ships that aren't at the expense of the New Republic. And then they also take their slicer codes as well and kind of use a little backdoor cheat to bump Luke's X-Wing repairs to the top of the priority list above the other ships. This chapter, I like Luke Lando team up. Honestly, I like it a lot, and it makes me extremely excited for Shadow of the Sith because that's kind of like the crux of that book.
The words out of my mouth, Grayson. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I thought. No, it's great. I'm glad you thought the same.
Yeah. What's up, Seth?
I think it's cool that they gave like a normal guy like a kind of a superpower rather than like, so not everybody's a Jedi. Like it's like, oh no, it like Luke wouldn't have figured that out, but like Lando with who Lando is knows this. So I just think
he's like, I remember this guy.
Yeah, I think that's neat.
Yeah, it's like, to me, I view so much of Star Wars now because of that tabletop RPG that I ran, and like to me that's like the GM is like, and you know, guy playing Lando is just like, you smell a scent that reminds you of someone from your past. Like, could you roll that real quick for me? And it's like, okay, yeah, like they succeed on the roll, and it's like, yeah, it's a specific guy, Niles Ferrier. You would remember him from this one job, and so like, we got to go track him down, right? Like that's how I view these things, and so it makes it pretty cool, you know. Give something Lando.
What do we have here?
You know what this reminded me of? You remember that arc in the Clone Wars where Obi-Wan becomes a bounty hunter for like 4 episodes, and when it starts, you're like, what in the world? What are we doing? And then at the end, you're like, man, I didn't know I needed that, but that was fun. What this was. It like didn't have a whole lot to do with the main plot, but a little side quest with Lando and Luke, just going down this facility and hunting down this. What was Farrier? He's a ship absconder, right? What does he do?
Right. Just like a shipjacker, I guess. Yeah.
It was just so fun.
Yeah, it's sick.
I really enjoyed it. That was
especially because you think about the context of the original trilogy, and it's like the only time we ever technically get a Lando-Luke team up is in the beginning of Return of the Jedi, and even that's not like them directly next to each other. It's just like they're chess pieces in the same situation, but this is them like actually talking and like, you know, dealing with the aftermath of the Battle of Sluis Van. So
I also really like that Luke is not a superhero. He's like, hey, Lando, if you come in here with me, I don't know if I'm going to be able to protect you. I can try, right? But I mean, I like that he's just a samurai that can move stuff. Like that's it. You know, he can fight really well, and he's gonna hold his own. But
even Lando like calls out, and he's just like they're kind of at that stalemate where like the shadow wraith person is like coming up, and they like get in the way, and he's just like, hey, this guy killed Palpatine and Vader. Like, don't mess with us, you know. And Luke's like. Yeah,
I don't know if that happened the way you said it, but if everybody believes that,
it's like, I mean, it's like in the. A lot. It's really cool, dude. It's it was a fun chat. Yeah, Will.
I was gonna say, spoiler alert for everybody at home. Are we all privy to the knowledge that Mara Jade and Lando were romantically together at one point in the EU?
No,
or Luke.
I didn't know that.
All right, this is true,
dude. This is 100% true, which is why I was waiting for this chapter to come up, because it's cool that they're teamed up, and it's Lando first, and then obviously Luke is what you think of when you think of like marrying Mara Jade. But there's at one point in what book is it? It's Children of the Jedi, and like it's like a hologram call. And Leia and Han are calling Mara, and she's just like, and she makes a funny comment. She's like, oh my gosh, she just woke up. She's like, oh my gosh, I must look like one of the Night Sisters of Dathomir right now. Like, because she's like not well made up, or like she's indecent at the moment. But then you see in the hologram call, like Lando over her shoulder, like combing his hair and like getting dressed at one point. Yeah, dude, it's wild. But it's before all the stuff with Luke. So like it's crazy to think about these books when you're like, oh, obviously like Luke and Mara, you're thinking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, they have such chemistry. But Lando's got capes, dude. Lando's got capes.
As he should.
Yeah.
Who wrote Children of the Jedi? I'm curious what Zahn thinks about that. I'd love to ask him.
They add it to the list.
Yeah, just mark it down. That's funny, dude. Because I thought you were going to say it was pre-air, and I was like, that's weird. Because
no.
Okay. That's interesting.
Unless it's like a flashback or something that I'm not remembering correctly. But yeah, that's from like, I remember looking that up when people were talking about talking about the Mara Jade rumors that are going on right now.
Right.
But like, I remember looking that up in 2015 when the Force Awakens stuff came out, and everybody was like, "Yeah, it could be Mara's grave, but also is Lando still alive? And is he mad about it?" And I was like, "What?" And then looking into it, you're like, "Oh, yeah, it's interesting."
That's so interesting.
Oh, Barbara Hambly is the
author. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
she is. She was at that Legends Expo convention. I think she's going back again this year. But I think she also did Planet of Twilight. But yeah, no, this fun chapter. That Wraith thing threw me for a loop when I was reading it. I was like, what are they talking about right now? And I'm like, oh, and that was one of the things in the comics that I was like, what does this look like? And I looked, and it was exactly how I imagined it, of it like going up against the wall. And I was like, that is really cool. I like that.
You know what I pictured? This is so weird.
What's that?
You know the villain in Scooby-Doo's Cyber Chase? That, but black. That, but black. I don't know why. That's what popped in my head.
The lightning guy?
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous.
He looks
I don't know why. That's just theater of the mind. That's what was going on.
That's amazing.
Kind of like what's his name? The fast blue speed guy from Ben 10.
Accelerate?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Man, I used to have an action figure of that.
If I were to view it like a Ben 10, I would think more of like Ghost Freak or something. Like him like going in the walls and stuff.
Oh yeah.
He was like the phantasm, but
there you go. Some obscure references for you guys.
How many Ben 10 characters can you name?
All of them.
Dude, go to series.
It's so good. Okay, chapter 3. Oh my gosh, my notes on this one are lengthy. Han, we cut to him. He arrives at the Imperial Palace on Coruscant. He catches up with Leia, who informs him that Thalia hasn't pushed much beyond the accusation towards Akbar's treason, chalking it up to a strange bank transfer that kind of happened, I think, simultaneously. And they were looking through the banks, and the orders of all of the ships were located to Sluis Van. That's kind of the basis of the accusation. Han is immediately pulled into a council meeting, kind of pseudo trial with Mothma, Thalia, and some others. He basically break down what happens in the battle and lets slip that there is a Grand Admiral leading the attack and that he did see him. Which I had forgotten about, but he sees him on Merkur. Most don't believe him because, according to archives and records, the Grand Admirals have all been accounted for. So this one comes as a surprise. Han and Leia later on they speak to Akbar, who's on house arrest. They discuss the Grand Admiral as well as how they managed to sneak all of the ships via a cloaking device, or at least that kind of cloaking device, and how they really need Luke and Wedge's testimonies to help him be freed. Leia also withholds why she left Kashyyyk temporarily from Han until the time is right. She's like, just be patient with me. So yeah, a lot of political chess pieces kind of catch up of what's going on back in Coruscant. This. I'm just going to say, so far, this plot thread is the least interesting one to me, but I know it's going to have payoff. It's just kind of like getting through it. I don't know what y'all think. Connor, you're muted.
Yeah, my bad. I have a question. So, was Zahn the first one to make the Emperor racist?
I would say so.
Okay, so the reason why I bring that up is because I think that it's interesting that these what seem like little character things that like Zahn is putting even on like the Emperor is not even in this story. It works to Thrawn's favor here because Han's describing him. He's like, yeah, he was blue, and everybody's like,
come on, dog.
The Emperor wasn't into that. You know what I mean? Like he's not. That's not real. So. All these little machinations are happening to sow doubt and to throw people Han's credibility off, with the New Republic sort of brass, if you will. And I think it's a small thing, but I think makes the story overall really interesting because like you have to ask the question why make why would Zahn go through the effort to make the Emperor racist? You know what I mean? Like that's such an interesting sort of retcon, if you will. I mean, he's a bad dude, so you could probably infer it anyway. Right. But now you see it's like, well, when your main villain is an alien, he's a Chiss, right? You can see how that could cause some doubt being sown on the rebellion side, and also just different things and different machinations and over the story. I just think it's a small thing, but it really helps the political intrigue, if you will.
Yeah. Yes, Seth.
Well, you see too in the movies that all the Imperials are just guys,
right?
Yep.
And then the aliens are all on the Alliance side.
Yeah, I mean it's an easy.
I mean, like, sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I just think it's like, okay, let's work with what he already could see. Yeah. So yeah.
I'm also curious if it had anything to like. I'm sure. Obviously, Zahn had a part in just being like, well, yeah, all the Imperials are just dudes. Like, there's no aliens or anything. But also, Will, you probably can attest to this. So much of the vehicles and the world building in this book was corresponding to the Weston Games source books that were coming out. Like the Skip Ray speeder to the dreadnoughts to all of that stuff was all. Yeah, Lady Luck, like that kind of the pleasure yacht that Lando has, like all of that is stuff that I think I found a quote recently that Zahn was talking about where like at first he felt a little bit annoyed because he was just like, okay, they're like making me use all of this stuff, but then he found it like as he was writing it, he was like, oh, this is actually immensely helpful. Yeah, you know, it's like, and it works out perfectly. So I'm curious if that was also a detail of like not just from like vehicles and equipment, but to be like, oh yeah, well, like we're creating this source book, and it's like, you know, for G or DMs to like make their tabletop thing to be like, listen, if you're going to include it, like the Emperor, like you're not the only alien if you're going to have is Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Empire. So, but I'm sure Zahn certainly had a part in that.
Well, it's just the whole reason I bring it up in the first place is because it just is it shows how well Zahn is able to take this established world and build off of it in small ways that make a massive difference. You know, like, hey, we need this Grand Admiral that wasn't in the original trilogy. It's like, yeah, you could just have him be out in the middle of nowhere, but that's really convenient. Like, oh, so this super smart, you know, tactician just wasn't in the original trilogy. But it's just this little tweak. Like, well, the Emperor was racist and the guy's blue. So
yeah,
good guy, but had to be pushed off, you know, behind the curtain.
It's just smart.
A small thing, but it makes everything like it helps the suspension of disbelief. Like I know we're in a galaxy far, far away, but some of these smaller, very human things, you know, can be difficult, I think, that can lift that suspension of disbelief. And it's something as simple as a little character quirk that can make it all kind of fit together. So anyway.
Yeah. There was, I lost my thought there, but yeah, there was,
my beat.
No, you're good. I'll think about it later on, but yeah. Any other thoughts on chapter 3?
Only thing I was going to add was to Seth's point about the stormtroopers. Call out for Bad Batch does a really good job of showing the progression of them going from clones to like regular guys. And all of those regular guys kind of being the same guy. And then like the episode with Crosshair where he's ends up annihilating that entire group of people on that one planet. And the stormtroopers are like, or the other troopers that are with him are like, we shouldn't be doing this, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
he's like,
yeah.
You need to follow orders. He's like, you want to be a trooper? You think I'm the guy who's getting phased out? I'm the only one who's strong enough, like that kind of thing. So I always thought it was interesting for stuff like that of like, how Palpatine, if you want to call it racism, towards clones, where he always viewed them as tools rather than people. And I mean,
it's just the hierarchy of like, Palpatine thinks he is the greatest dude to ever live. So he thinks everybody is inferior, and then he's just got like got a period. Hey, you and your robe over there. No, I'm just kidding.
He just inhumanizes, you know, and that's that's all what it goes back to. Is he just
yeah.
It's all based on how he can use people and not how they are as people.
The thing I was going to say is it's crazy how like so much of the content in this book is still canon. If that like what I'm saying is like little aspects of like, oh, it still fits, like, or things that they took from this that are still in the current canon now. And it's like, man, the legacy of how much was taken from this is just crazy. Like this truly set off such a grand chain of events. And like I read that Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire book, and it's like so much of the stuff that they're talking about, like, or even with what I was going to say is this chapter reminded me so much of that meeting that or the several meetings that Hera has with Xiono and all the other senators and stuff. Like even down to that one episode, is it episode 7 of Ahsoka, where like Xiono is like Thalia and Xiono are like, they're right there. Like they're like the same dudes, basically, you know? Yeah. Even down to like, oh, we don't believe Thrawn's coming back, you know? So it's for me, I'm like, okay, Dave absolutely took inspiration from that subplot from these books. So yeah, but chapter 4, we cut over to Luke. He's looking within the palace library more about the original Joruus C'baoth. And there's a lot of juicy lore here. He finds that it goes through a whole lot of stuff, but basically the main thing is he finds that he self-promoted himself the Jedi Master. He helped they can do that. They do that now. He assisted with kind of like a royal scandal on Alderaan, and was involved with a project dubbed Outbound Flight. And I believe he was also very close with Palpatine as well. He inquires with Winter about the man, finding, and basically he's just like, all right, I got to go to Joe Mark myself to figure out. But before he does that, Luke meets with Leia, Han and Chewie, who catch him up to speed about what's going on with Akbar and everything. Han speculates that Thalia either could be an Imperial agent or is using some past ties to kind of coincidentally frame Akbar. So Han wants to check out a connection to Thalia on a planet called New. Is it New for audiobook listeners? Is it New Cov? New Cov?
I think that's how it's pronounced.
Okay. COV. It made me think of like New Covenant, but no Covenant, just New Cov. With Luke, Chewie interrupts and basically spills the beans on the deal that Leia made with the Nogri. Han is very upset, begs her not to go, and realizes there's a really good Han moment where he realizes like he knows better not to try and stop her, and that like this is her strength, right? This is the kind of stuff that she was meant to do. So he's lets her use the Falcon. Chewie and her go off, and 3PO also comes along as well. This was definitely, out of so far, my favorite Han moment, where like you get that little dialogue of him talking about like why he like to take this away from her would be to take away one of the main reasons why he fell in love with her in the first place, and why he was swayed over to the Alliance. And so he's like, I can't, it's not right of me to stop her, so I'm gonna just do everything I can to help you, and we're gonna go do some of this other stuff. And of course, like, you got to split the party. It kind of helps with the pacing and all of the chess pieces, but it's more political stuff. But that and then the Luke looking through the very interesting dating system in the Imperial Library, because I want to say,
about it.
yeah, no, I like that. I was like, that is a very good, like, this may not be the most accurate dating system, because like I don't know if that was before in universe they did like, or even out of universe, they did like the BBY, ABY thing, which, to be honest, I always thought was kind of weird. Like, I always felt like the end of Revenge of the Sith should have been like the time center point. Like, but I get
Imperial era or something.
Right. Just like, but I get also it's like for movie simplification's sake, like, let's just make it A New Hope, basically. So, yeah. What are y'all's thoughts? What'd you say?
I said B66 instead. Before an A66, B66.
Oh, that'd be terrible, dude. Yes, Seth?
I mean, like, the destruction of the Death Star is like one of the biggest atrocities.
Oh my! What's this Imperial yapper over here?
I'm just tossing it out there. I mean, like, a lot of people died, so I could see that why it's a.
Did they on Alderaan? So what's going on there?
What about the Wookiees, man?
What about them?
They were enslaved, bro, for like 20 years.
What about them?
What about them? Get out of here with
They
the
turned out
Wookiee.
all right.
Hey, what are you talking about Wookiee for?
This guy is
They
crazy.
got claws.
Oh man, I'm gonna see. Actually, we're on chapter 4, correct? I want to actually pull up that dating system real quick, just to.
While you're pulling that up, fire chapter. I thought this is where things really started to move, in my opinion. Like we're really starting to see where everybody's going. Okay, Leia's going on her quest. Luke's going on his quest. Han is doing his thing too. I'll admit I'm kind of with Seth. He's the least interesting thing about this book, but that's okay. I've never been a Han guy anyway.
They all can't have something cool to do. Just reminds me of Game of Thrones.
Well,
where
okay.
it's like, great, an Arya chapter.
Han does get an interesting character move later toward the end of this first half that I think is, we'll talk about it. But with Luke here, I love all the stuff with Joruus and what's going on with him. An advisor to Senator Palpatine. That was fun to hear. Because was it established lore that he was a senator, became chancellor, and then like created the empire at this point?
I think this was the first thing, because it says that Palpatine was a senator. He's just like Senator Palpatine, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously they don't say Palpatine in the movies. I know they say it in like the book, and like it was known, so it's not like Zahn created that, but just neat to see this almost like a prequel tie-in here. Like Joruus is like Anakin. He was the personal advisor from the Jedi Council to Palpatine, and that's what Anakin becomes later, which is neat. Yes, Seth.
That one Star Wars book that I have, like it describes Palpatine's rise to power, and it's pretty close to Revenge of the Sith.
Is it pre?
It came out the year Star Wars came out, 1977.
Oh, okay.
I think it actually came out in 1976. That's
is that the Alan Dean Foster book?
It's the one I've shown it to you. I don't remember who wrote it.
I
was gonna say the little prologue where it like talks about like this is the adventures of Luke Skywalker, the journey through the wills, and it like describes Palpatine's rise to power. It's actually pretty close to how it goes down in the book. Yeah, that like he was a lowly senator and rose to power and was able to dupe everyone, and there was not a lot of details, but like the broad strokes are still there.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, that's the original like Star Wars book that Alan Dean Foster basically adapted George Lucas's original screenplay.
It's the novelization of.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm thinking of the same book.
It does make sense, because George, even as early as then, had spoken about like, obviously he didn't know every minute detail of the prequels, but he did know of like how Palpatine rose to power, basically. Like he was a senator, he played everybody, he made his way up, he convinced Darth Vader. So like that at least checks off, and which helps build that up. Yeah, so the dating system here, he says Jedi advisor to Senator Palpatine on the computer, but it's the year system that they go by is PE, which just stands for pre-Empire. But like the years are like way grander scale, because like I don't think they didn't know the timeline yet at that point of like how long the Clone Wars lasts and how long in between when Anakin fell and stuff like that. So, it says
fitting. Pre-us, after us.
Well, I mean,
that's what I care about. Right? Like it's ridiculous.
The new regime is.
Yes. Yeah. It's the line. He says, what was it about new regimes? He wondered that one of their first official acts always seemed to be the creation of a new dating system, which then they went and applied to all existing historical records. The Galactic Empire had done that, as had the Old Republic before it. He could only hope that the New Republic wouldn't follow suit. So, So, but it's really cool seeing him. Like it's such a unintentional, because it didn't exist yet, but like, just gave me such parallels to Obi-Wan looking through the archives and Attack of the Clones, you know? Which is always just fun, right?
What do you guys think about, we get a little bit more information about how Jedi training operated back before this period. I just love all of this proto-prequel stuff that we're getting in this book.
Yeah.
And I will admit, something I miss from the pre-prequel days is how the Force and the Jedi were just like Kung Fu. You know, it was like just kung fu with a little bit of wizardry. You know what I mean? And I kind of miss that. Like when you go find Yoda, you're expecting to find, Jackie Chan out there. You're expecting to find the kung fu master, right? Like Karate Kid or something. And now it's obviously we've expanded. It's great. I love all the lore about the Jedi councils and how the Jedi operate as an order. But there is something to the fact that like No, it's just this almost small gang of people who practiced a martial art, basically. It wasn't an order per se. It was just some people were masters if they really dedicated their life to it. Like, you couldn't become a master at age 25 or whatever, like Obi-Wan did. No, you had to be, dedicate your entire life.
It was Sabaoth based on this chapter, like with the whole like master thing. He did the that like Obama meme where it's like the two Obamas like giving him the medal, But it's funny. I'm gonna send it to you after. It's worth your time. Actually, right before this, I was watching a Jedi Academy video essay and they're talking about the nuance and the difference between kind of how the Jedi were in the original trilogy and before the prequels of like. They before we kind of learned more about the dogma of the Jedi, and like there was just this more interesting level of like choice between light and dark. It's very fast. It's subtle, but it's very fascinating, and I think it fits right in with like the prequel notion of like what a Jedi is, and which I think is also why, at least I think all of us. Seth, I can't remember where he is at on your hierarchy of favorite characters, but. Why I think we all like Luke Skywalker, because he's such a far cry from like what we see in the prequels of what a Jedi is. And it's kind of he's more of a simplified version of what a Jedi is, of like boiling it down to brass tacks of like, because there's just so much not left of it. But what are you going to say, Seth?
Well, I mean, he's Mara. He's finding his way in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why like we all like Luke.
Yeah.
And like Mara's in these stories finding her way in the world.
That's true.
She's the Luke Skywalker of these, if you will.
I guess they've got kind of that like that. I've never really thought about that. I didn't even think about that till just now, but they've got like that different sides of the same coin of like, kind of they're I don't know, weird, not people out of time, but it makes me think of that line, I believe it's in Winter Soldier where Cap's like, Black Widow is trying to get him with like these different women and stuff. And he's just like, not a whole lot of people to have shared life experience, Mm-hmm. And it's like, obviously Luke is on a different side of the battle, but Luke and Mara kind of have that commonality. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah. They're a mirror to each other. Yeah. That's what makes it cool. We talked about it during air, but they set up Palpatine to Mara as sort of the Obi-Wan to Luke, which is a really interesting dichotomy. And going through Mara on her own way is going through the hero's journey in these stories.
It's really cool.
With a little twist.
Very much so. All right, before we hop into some of the next chapters, let's catch up with the chat. Guys, if you have not entered already, I see also a couple of other entries. Hashtag TFTA giveaway. Whoa, what? Did you just do that, Will?
It was the Force.
The will of it?
I don't believe hope you're religious.
But yes, signed copy of Heir to the Empire, Timothy Zahn, the man himself. Stay in the stream. Make sure you get your entry. It's only one per person, and you have a chance to win. So let's speed up here. We got some chapters to get through.
Hey, go ahead. I thought it was giveaway. TFA. Is that what that said?
Is it TFTA giveaway or just
TFTA?
TFTA giveaway. The Force got it wrong. Okay,
just trying to help.
And I just made that thing about the Force doesn't get it wrong about Thrawn. And
I was just trying to help. I didn't want them to.
It's fine.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You did the right thing. I got big thumbs.
Gazer, I see you just did it. I would do that again, but without the exclamation point.
No exclamation point. Currently, we have 13 entries. Can I see everybody? No, it won't let me look who everybody has entered. But yes.
Schechter.
Good job, Schechter. Wait, Andrew Haley. Welcome back. Haven't seen you in a while.
Hello there.
Okay. Chapter 5. My favorite chapter so far. I got to geek out about this chapter. So we cut over back to Talon Card and Mara. They have set up their new base in a townhouse on Rishi. They discuss how Card knows where the Katana fleet, a missing fleet of Old Republic dreadnoughts, is and what to do with it. I think there was a very tiny mention of it in Heir to the Empire, so when it came back up, I was like, okay. But Mara is sent to a equipment dump to get some netting to hide some of their ships in the swamps outside of the town or the city. but she spots someone watching her. She decides to follow, cutting through various streets and kind of playing this cat and mouse game. Finally getting the advantage on him before being caught off guard by a bounty hunter for the Empire. However, she, in a very cool fashion, uses her re-blossoming skills in the Force to just mildly distract him and kills him in cold blood. And she rushes back to Card, where they get out of Dodge, leaving Rishi. This chapter, I was like, yes, dude, Mara, let's go. I need more chapters like this. Yes, Seth.
This, I'm sure you've heard me say, that's why Mara's on point. If you're fighting something bad, you put her in the front. She's going to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Mara's on point.
Yeah.
Luke's going to be up there going like, well, maybe we could touch its mind and tell it to go away. No, she's just going to shoot it. So, yeah. She's going to go all Emperor's hand on it.
Do y'all know, I've been itching to say this. This is like literally the only thing I could think about when talking about the thing about the stream. Do y'all know the cover of the video game Red Dead Redemption? The first game. It's the guy. It's John Marston, the guy with long hair. He's got the double barrel shotgun pointing it like at the camp. Yes, exactly.
No, I can Google it though.
Look at it. Yeah, I could pull it up for people, I guess, who don't know. But that is.
I can look it up in an encyclopedia.
Red Dead Redemption. That cover is one of my favorite game covers, just because like I'm a big Red Dead fan, and the way it was described, where like she uses the Force to like twinge that cover right there. She like twinges the little like tubing to like fall off of the thing, and the guy turns around, and she just pulls out her blaster quick enough, and it's described that the guy like crouches down and sweeps around and comes back up, and the camera that I saw was just that angle where it was just shot straight through the head, and her with the blaster just like right like that.
Was it that guy from Book of Boba Fett that spun around?
Dude, okay, I did think about that. When the guy was spinning around, I was like, part of my mind just went to the guy going.
The homie. Yep.
Yeah, but that was the speeder bike gang. That was like, oh my gosh, finally some good Mara Jade content. But yeah, this chapter was a lot of fun, getting into Mara's headspace, seeing her get some more twinges in the Force per se, is something that has very much elevated this book for me. I imagine the same for y'all. So
personally, the highlight of this chapter was the reveal of the Katana fleet, I thought. Because I had not read these stories before, and so this was a big surprise. I love stuff like that. It's like a little treasure hunt, something like that. And I'm like, okay, Dark Force Rising. I just assumed that it was like, oh, Thrawn and his gang are coming back to power. Nope, it's talking about a hidden fleet called the Dark Force. That blew my mind while I was reading it. I was like, man, it
is really
fun.
cool. It felt very at-me, where it's just like, oh, there's this like, and obviously not as old as like, those planets, and obviously it's a new development canon, but like to be like, oh, there's this kind of like this fleet of ships that just kind of disappeared, and people chased after him for a while, and eventually just kind of fell flat, and Card has just known this whole time.
Ghost stories, like legends, things like that, and
they even say
what's that?
So, they even say that like some like disease like wiped out the entire crew or something. Yeah.
I think what I like about it the most is that it's not like an old Jedi legend or something like that, or like Darth Plagueis, nothing like that. It's like this old pirate's tale, about this ship this fleet that got lost out in the stars. It reminds me of like Uncharted 4, or like, where they go to find Libertalia or something like that. Yeah. Very cool. I loved it personally.
That's cool. Yes, Seth.
It's cool too that like we're going to learn it later, but like, Talon Card knows where it's at. And then like Lando's researched it a bunch, like all your big kind of like treasure hunters have at least like taken a crack at trying to find it. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah,
I'll BRB. I'm gonna go tell my kiddo good night, but don't wake me up. Don't wait on me, rather.
No worries. That makes me think I have a question about that, because we haven't really gotten to it yet, and I'll let the long game play. But yeah, this is a dope chapter. I need more Mara content now.
She has the best chapters.
I'm glad you agree.
Yeah, I mean that's why like this book is fine, but I mean like it's kind of like for lack of a better term, it's almost like watching like Last Jedi, where you only like care about like a little, or at least I only like I want to watch one part of the story where I'm like I want to watch a whole movie about that.
Yeah.
I don't care about checking in.
I'm just cracking up because I'm thinking of like the streak of the books that we've read, and you have always been the one that has just been like the least satisfied with reading, and that is like completely fine.
No,
I'm just
fine.
like, will we ever get a book? Will we ever get a book where Seth is like, this is the shit, dude?
Yeah.
You know, like
no, I'll admit it. I'm a diva. I get it. That it's just
next time for TFTA, we're gonna read Eat, Pray, Love for Seth.
Ooh,
I love it.
I was hoping Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Yeah,
we're gonna read the first 10 Magic Treehouse books.
Oh, Magic is the pants. Oh, that's actually a good. Dude, I might switch to be a.
To
what? You might switch to what?
I was waiting for you guys.
Gotcha.
Chapter 6.
Real talk though, if you guys were like, "Hey, I want to read Narnia," I'd be all about that.
Dude, I know Connor is gone, and we're gonna keep going, but
yeah,
I love Narnia.
Yeah,
really?
Just saying, because we could read like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in one sitting. So
Dude.
like, yeah. Anyway, maybe at Christmas. That's all
Christmas.
I'm saying.
There you go.
Yeah.
Chapter 6. The Chimera attacks a New Republic convoy. I forgot about this chapter.
I'm not a hater, Gabby. Sorry. That's just from sorry. Yeah.
No, I know.
I'm not a hater. Knock that off.
I'm gonna have it that Seth the lover.
Sorry, it's just coming. It's just that's coming over from our chats.
Hey, Seth is just a realist. Okay.
I'm sorry you all had to see that.
If you put that hashtag in, it actually takes you out of the giveaway. So.
That's slander.
It's just
I won't have it.
Anyway, Chimera attacks a New Republic convoy as Pelion and Thrawn discuss how their intelligence team planted the framing for Akbar, but confirm Phalia is not directly working for Thrawn, only acting based on what Thrawn has studied about the species, which is very cool. He also reveals that he does have a plant in the Imperial Palace dubbed Delta Source that Luke, and he finds out that Luke is going to Jomark. Intelligence also surmises that Han is going to investigate Polani, which was that thing earlier we talked about where that he actually got that wrong. They discuss Sabaoth, who disobeyed an order on their raid on Tanab. Thrawn decides to personally go to Honegger and remind the Nogri who's the boss, you know?
The boss.
Sabaoth feels, we cut over to him, feels the negative effects of using his power on Tanab. He kind of conspires against Thrawn, craving to be feared and respected by the Imperials. And he receives news. They don't say what news it is, but I'm assuming it's news that Luke is on his way to Jomark from down the mountain. So just some catching up with the plot. Yes, Seth?
Does it kind of make you feel bad for Joruus? Like,
does he just need a hug?
Well, it feels like he's like an old horse that needs to be put out, and like Thrawn's just like, nah, you got one last ride in you. It's like, just keep doing this. He's like, I guess, and then like, I guess I'll do this, even though like I'm so broken and busted down, and like, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's some good nuance, I think, for the those chapters, because even he's expressing how like tired and stuff he is, but then he's like, man, I'm gonna get Thrawn. God, I hate that guy, you know. He's like, I'm gonna show him what real power is. It's definitely like, I don't know, just you're seeing the insanity bleed through, which is very cool. But it's interesting. I'm glad that they reveal that Phalia is not an Imperial, you know, because I think that would have been a very easy like prediction. But more so that Thrawn is using Phalia's lust for power, I guess, which is similar to Palpatine, to kind of again play the chess pieces right. So they had a little hand in it, but not the full hand, if that makes sense. So And it's cool to also, like, I love these little chapters where it's like, it's just Pelion and Thrawn, like, just kind of walking about the bridge, and like Thrawn's like offhanded, like, hey, blow that thing up, guys, move over here, and then he goes back to Pelion, and then like it's neat little it's like what they talk about in like filmmaking, where like, you know, when they're having dialogue, like having them actually do something, that's kind of how I visualize it, instead of them just sitting there like, this is what we are going to do, you know. So yeah. Any thoughts before I move on?
Don't try to frighten us with your sorcerer's ways, Vader. I mean, they weren't robots. I mean, they were, you know.
I was thinking of the exact same scene.
Really?
So they didn't chill in that scene.
Thank you. Look at that. Not even in the same room, and we're
not that I need every scene for them to be doing something. Like, that is like obviously like a meeting, but still, yeah, they're like, you know. Hold on.
You guys almost did it. That was almost it. This
is the ET finger. What are we doing? Chapter 7. Leia. Oh, they're having fun over there. Leia, Chewie, and 3PO arrive in orbit of Endor a day early. As Chewie and 3PO do maintenance, that's ridiculous. Leia blacks out, figuring out that they actually passed through the orbit of where the second Death Star was destroyed.
That was sick.
It's pretty cool. Really cool little moment. I was so caught off guard.
I like that, like, Sith spirits still kind of linger on the physical realm. If that makes sense.
Oh, right, because it's like Palpatine's.
It's like a dark side echo almost.
Exactly. Like, I think that's fun. I mean, that, like, you know, Jedi get to live on, and they can like walk around and, you know, help their young Padawans. But Palpatine's kind of what's left of him is stuck in this spot.
Yeah.
Well, I think what this also is, I didn't think about this till just now. If that was on Endor, like on the planet, it would have created another nexus like on Dagobah, because Thrawn makes that pretty clear that the thing on Dagobah is only there because of a Dark Jedi died in that cave after he fought with Yoda. And
should have been Darth Maul, guys.
This spot, you know, this spot in space is another sort of dark side nexus. So it's neat that she gets to have that similar sort of cave moment, if you will. I like that a lot.
Will, I already know what you're about to ask, but go ahead.
Seth, what are you saying, dude?
Okay. About what? Darth Maul?
Yeah,
we talked about this.
You can't just drop that. I know what you're talking about, but
we talked about it in the first stream.
Exactly. Like, I really wanted Dagobah to be Naboo. Oh, and that's where Darth Maul fell, and that's where the cave was.
I was really out and heard, I wish it was Darth Maul, and I was like, who blew up the Death Star?
Yeah, totally. He's so cool, guys. He should have blown up. Yep.
Should have been Darth Maul just throwing his double-bladed lightsaber like a spear.
He's just like Adam Warlocking through space, like down.
Yeah, I was doing so many calculations in my head. I was like, how would Timothy Zahn even know who Darth Maul is?
Oh, he knows.
Timothy Zahn actually created Darth Maul, guys.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know, speaking of, though, that actually reminds me of that moment in one of the recent comics where Leia goes into the elevator and, you know, gets that
vision
moment
of Darth
where
Maul.
you just see the eyes of Darth Maul.
That was exactly what I thought of, dude. Y'all, this is kind of off topic, but like also on topic. Y'all saw that you shared it, Will, that deleted cutscene, or it was from going to be in the Battlefront 3 campaign for the console release of Luke walking with Wedge on Mustafar and he's like hearing the echoes of like Battle of the Heroes, dude. Canon.
Just throw that to Aspire. I know they didn't do so hot with the classic collection. You know, give him another chance. Let him finish the game and put it out there.
I think that is a Fortnite cutscene at this point. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Gosh.
How sick would it be? Connor and I were talking about this, to have a Legends banner across the top of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
dude. I'm telling you,
slick, wouldn't it?
Like, do that with 1313.
Like more than 1 million copies first day.
Yeah, dude.
Easy.
Oh, dude, it would
easy.
You could sell it like.
I think Lucasfilm is allergic to money.
There could be a whole tab on Disney Plus for Legends animation stuff, but I don't want to go down that hole.
Oh man, yeah. Like I do think, I've always said it, like, if Visions can do non-canon stuff and that be abundantly clear, you can do more non-canon stuff and it still be like, look at this.
He's doing it. DC's doing it right now. They got
the Black Label
stuff, and they got
the Batman
as Batman, and then they got another guy who will be eventually announced as Batman. They're gonna have 7 different Batmans, and I don't care.
Yeah, Joaquin.
Yeah,
as Joker.
Joaquin. Joaquin.
I saw someone call him Joe Quinn, and I was like, all right, guys. Anyway, midway through chapter 7, a little Death Star thing happened. Cut back to Han and Lando. They arrive at the domed city of Illic on New Cov, planning to meet Luke there. Why are they meeting Luke there? Oh, because Luke's going to go off and do Joe Mark. That's right. They spot one of Phalia's aides. I believe it's Braelia.
Yeah, Braelia. I don't remember. It was confusing me.
Braelia. That's how the audiobook pronounces it. Braelia.
Braelia. Okay. Thank you, Mark. They spot his aide. Han follows him and tracks him to a shipping warehouse, but he's snuck up on by a older woman and held at blaster point. We cut over to Luke, who is waiting in one of the bars for Lando and Han, but he is forced to settle a fight between 2 patrons. He successfully does so with the help of Lando translating and using, lo and behold, Niles Ferrier from earlier, who's also there. And they convert the Imperial currency to New Republic credits. Lando and Luke leave, but an alarm immediately starts to go off, signifying an Imperial raid. But everybody is very much unbothered, and they figure out that it's actually some sort of kind of like transaction where the Empire shows up and takes some of the resources that they are kind of harvesting on New Cov. Luke goes to find Han, while Lando goes back up to the landing pads to try to wipe the records of them being there so they don't get spotted. So we get, other than Mara, I guess, because I would equate Mara at this point to, at least a pseudo protagonist. We pretty much get a viewpoint from all of the protagonists this chapter. But yeah, I think seeing Luke negotiate a little fight is very interesting. Yes,
I think it's cool because it's not like Jedi business as you see in the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. That like Luke's like, no, let's sit and talk about it, guys. Let's figure it out. He can just like whip out his lightsaber and start chopping arms.
Right.
I know it's not the exact same thing.
Cop. Right.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, it comes into a very good, very obvious parallel later on, but it's Luke just being like, let's chill the F out, guys. Yeah. All right. You want money? That guy in the crowd, give him money.
Kind of going back to what Connor, you were saying before, like, I know it's the term The Last Jedi, but like, other than how he was able to convene with Yoda for the short time that he did and Obi-Wan for the short time that he did, he truly has no like idea of how the Jedi acted or diplomacy or any of that, or how they carried themselves from the time of the prequels pre-Order 66. So he's
got books.
Yeah, other than like books and stuff and like figuring out like artifacts, but like at this point, is he really like looking for all that stuff, or is he more just like, we got to set up the New Republic and I'm going to help these guys out? Like, I think to your point earlier, Connor, like all of the way the Jedi are right now, it's kind of gives base to what Han said in A New Hope about like the Force, like how he's like hokey religions. Where it's like, oh, it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, like, but like that it's all so separate. And then when it gets to the time of Han, and I know like you think about Han's age and you're like, he really didn't know any Jedi, like there's stuff like that where it's like that's weird. But now and how prominent the Force was and how many people actually believed in it, it's like him being like, Buddhism, I've never heard of Buddhist, like it's just weird. But like stuff like that of giving base to how Han felt, it really makes sense of like how scarce the Jedi were at the time, and definitely how scarce they are now. I mean, he's really the only guy.
He is the last Jedi.
Yeah,
well, I like that. I mentioned earlier how like Luke gets an arc, and I like that his arc is trying to figure out what is it to be an actual Jedi. What does that mean? What does it mean to be a Jedi? And he going through this period right now where he's like, okay, I'm kind of being a space cop, like I'm mediating. Yeah, so that's what this means. It means, being good with my lightsaber, but also when to put it down. And like Ben and Yoda taught me certain things, but that's clearly not the whole picture because I'm meeting this guy named Sabayoth who does things way differently. Obviously,
he's like, this guy's tripping.
But I like that Luke is having to go through this idea of like, okay, let's get real down to the core. What does it mean to be a Jedi? And he takes it very seriously because he really wants to get it right.
I mean, it's straight up to that very beginning of Air, the second chapter, when he's talking to 3PO and they mention it. They mention it when he helps Mara in the previous book. And even now, or maybe, I think when he's talking about Sabaoth of like just helping individual people, like to not be so concerned with galactic matters. Like, we'll get to it a little bit later when he does get to Joe Mark. But like, yeah, he's getting, when he was, like, you don't really think about it, but when he was fighting for the rebellion, there was never really opportunities for him to do that. He was in the middle of fighting a war, and it was the entire mission was to take down Vader and Palpatine. That was the goal. Yeah. And it's like, you think about such a galactic, like, you're so worried about that. Like, I mean, if I'd put myself in Luke's shoes, once that happens, you're like, dang, what do I do now?
Yeah, like, he's a warrior.
Like, I guess I'm a Jedi.
Right? Which is,
what do I do now?
Yeah. I think that it's pretty deep, and that's something that's really interesting because he doesn't have really a war to fight. He does, but it's not the same. Like what you were just saying, Grayson. Like, he doesn't have that wizard adversary, at least not yet. And he's got to figure out truly what does it mean to be a Jedi, especially if I have to teach another generation of Jedi later. Like, I feel like if I'm Luke, man, the weight of the galaxy is on your shoulder. Because at least when you had to fight Vader and Palpatine, it's a simple goal, right? Difficult, but simple.
He's got to beat up my dad and his boss.
I wanted to pull this up.
You're about to bring this up? Because I was about to go bananas.
Yeah, go for it.
I love that he doubts himself. I truly love that because it shows a lot of time people think doubt is you believing that you can't do something. And a lot of times that's what doubt is, but it's also it shows how much passion you have for the thing that you need to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's really cool about Luke. Connor, you literally just said it. He has the weight of the entire galaxy. He is the guy. And you hear him say that in Last Jedi. He's like, I became a legend. I'm the guy who walked into a room with Palpatine and Vader, and I'm the only guy who walked out. And nobody knew who I was. And then I forget which show it was where you see, maybe it's Book of Boba Fett, if I remember correctly, where there's the hologram, the inscription talking about like Luke Skywalker as a legend, or maybe it's Mandalorian or something like that. The legend Luke Skywalker. There's Aurebesh script somewhere, and I want to say it's
Mando.
Is it Mando?
2, episode 1.
Vanth,
yeah,
right?
With the Death Star blowing up.
Yeah. And it's you see that around, and it's talking about legend Luke Skywalker, the Death Star, the galaxy is like there's that script around it, and that's all people really knew. Like there wasn't TV or anything like that. It was just out to the galaxy. Luke Skywalker, Jedi, defeats Darth Vader, defeats the Emperor, and the Death Star blew up again. Like, you are the guy. So for him to be able to doubt himself with the weight of the entire galaxy is one of my favorite parts of Luke because he perseveres through that. I think that is awesome.
It brings a very good humanity to Luke, which I very much appreciate because I think even as fans, like when the sequels were coming out, despite however you feel about Last Jedi, we all were like, yeah, Luke Skywalker's a legend, right? He is that guy. And even this like makes me appreciate. I'm like, oh, there's nuance. Like he is still just like kind of, you know, only fresh a couple years out of doing this, and still trying to pick up the pieces. It's cool.
I don't mean to pick on the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I don't have anything else to say. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't mean to pick on the Last Jedi too hard, but like this is a better version of this, I think, because what bothers me about TLJ is like I don't think that Luke loses that fight with himself, you know, like he's having here, where he's doubting himself. He's like, what does it mean to really be a Jedi? What does it mean to be a living legend in this galaxy? As I expect will happen in this books, and I could be wrong. I imagine he will win that internal battle, you know, and find the person he's meant to be. And yeah, he gets there in the end with TLJ, but we don't see when he lost the battle originally, if that makes sense, when he loses that internal fight. And that kind of bums me out a little bit in comparison, because I like it here. I like exactly everything Will was just saying. I love that he doubts himself. I love that he's finding his place in the wider galaxy, aside from just, I got to beat up my dad with this glowing sword.
Yeah.
Yes, Seth.
In like the Last Jedi's like defense, like this is still like a very young Luke Skywalker in his journey.
That's my
doubting himself. Yeah,
100%.
Like in Last Jedi, you know, he was older and a little more broken down, and like I think he'd been through a lot. We just don't know that story yet.
That's
so I think that's the
like
thing.
the death of Mara Jade.
I was about to say because I was just about to reference, like, you know, in the later books with New Jedi Order and with like it's the Legacy of the Force, like that stuff is a lot of stuff happens like that could really break Luke down. Of course, they're going in a natural progression of timeline as opposed to being like 30 years later. So yeah, like I mean, Jason turns into like one of the baddest Sith Lords of all time and kills his wife, and I picked up 2 more of those books because they were super cheap and they had very pretty covers.
I guess for me, it's just Luke is the guy that he's going to help. You know, he's going to help you. Like in the Great Battlefront 2 scene, you know, why did you help me? Because you asked.
Yeah.
And you guys, you know, saying that Luke is much older in that story. I think that's what bothers me. It's like he should be at that point where no matter what, I don't care how, you know.
Oh, I agree.
Where the chips are down, I'm going to help.
I agree.
I might lose.
That
because
should be like
I'm not the guy you think I am.
But I also think on the flip side of like, one can also very easily get to the point of like, well, how much help have I actually done since then? You know, like I'm like my order failed.
That story, like we haven't seen what happened, right? But because there's that massive hole there, it's like I know like the person I'm reading in these books, the person I saw in the OT, right? Like I have a hard time seeing him truly losing that battle to the point he won't help. You know, he would go down swinging before he didn't help. But I guess that's not about this book.
Star Wars fans try not to bring up Last Jedi controversy challenge level. Yeah. What is it, Will?
I was going to say, and not to get too off topic, but Connor.
Oh, we're off topic.
Sorry.
Cool. I'm just saying we're already there.
Hey, Star Wars, talk about Star Wars. We're going to do.
Exactly.
Would I not to direct this completely at you, Connor, but I would love to hear everybody's take on this. Would the place Luke is at in The Last Jedi be more palatable if we saw him in that hole, so to speak, while he was younger, closer post Return of the Jedi?
Personally, yes, I think so. I think, because don't get me wrong, I'm actually not a huge. I actually like the arc he goes through in TLJ. It's just I don't like the starting point. That's where I get with it.
Yeah, totally.
Ultimately picks up his sword at the end and faces down the First Order. That's awesome. I really like that, and I like that he gets broken down and he has to come back out of that. I like that. I just don't. There's a lot of things that not helping his sister, not helping someone that comes to him for help. This person that he doesn't know, but comes to him for help. And would it be easier if it was earlier? Yeah, I think so, because at least you could chalk that up to youthful, whatever. But I feel like at this point, this guy that I've come to know as this hero. Like, I don't want him to be a superhero. Don't get me wrong. I don't want him to go out there and, he's saving the day with all of his force powers. It's just the fact that he won't help in the beginning. And that just, to me, that's not my guy, right? Like, but that said, if we had a story that showed us why he truly, like we were just joking about, the death of Mara Jade, hey, I could get behind that. It's just, we don't have that. So we have to kind of leave that up to speculation, and it's tough to see what could get my boy so down. You know what I mean? Where he's not willing to help.
You guys just want to bring her in just to kill her.
Here's Mara Jade. She's gone. No, I'm just kidding. It'd be fine.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my train.
No, I think for me, when it comes to The Last Jedi, the way I view it is I don't like it, and that's why I like it. Because the way Luke is, it's like you said, when you get the way you start the story, it's jarring. And for me, and I know all of us as well, but like for somebody who is such a Luke Skywalker fanboy, seeing that, it's like it tears your heart out. But I think that's why the older I get with it, it's so cool to see him come out of that place. Because if it had to be anybody who could show that they could dig themselves out of that hole, regardless of how I disagree with his actions while he was in it, I'm happy that it was Luke Skywalker, I think, is my thing. But that's really, like, for me, the lesson of your darkest spot, you could still get yourself out of it. And Luke being the one who is A New Hope to be able to do that is awesome. But yeah, no, that I totally agree. And we can go back and forth with this the entire time, but we're talking about Dark Force Rising.
I want to address this. I will say, like, you just added, like, but I'm like that with humans in my life too. It's like, some of the best people I know are like the harshest people on themselves. It's a level of very intense humility that strides the line between just being really down on yourself. And it's, I think, even the best people that can have that struggle. So it's nice to see. Of course, he'll get out of it.
I'm with you, Will. I love that he climbs out.
Yeah,
that's why I love Kenobi. Okay, I'll be real, because you get to see Obi-Wan do the same thing. He literally at the end, climbs out of the hole. Get out of here, Seth. Okay, we don't have to talk about it. I'm just saying.
All right, we're on Kenobi now. Let's go to chapter 8.
You guys want to talk about Andor season?
Hey, real quick though, we didn't say it, but Cantina Talk, appreciate you. Member 5 months, $2 super chat.
Woo!
By the way,
congrats on 200K. That's wild.
That's insane. Reminder: #TFTA giveaway. Heir to the Empire. Signed copy.
Yeah, check out that book.
There you go. Hey, it's right now. Chapter 8.
You're banned. Get out of here.
All right, banning him. Han is brought to an office in the warehouse. He's introduced to the leader of their operation there on Yukov, a woman named Senna. I'm going to assume Senna. And Taff Bralia, who accuses him of Han of being an Imperial spy before he kind of like backtracks. Senna realizes Han is who he says he is and gives him his gear back. The guards bring Luke, and Senna helps them get back to their ships with the older woman, Irenez. After a very clever stunt using Lando's simple remote beacon for the Lady Luck, they all manage to get to their respective ships, with Irenez joining Han and Lando on the Lady Luck. A Star Destroyer begins the pursue. They make break for orbit, with Luke fighting off some of the TIE fighters. Senna and her ship emerge from the jungle in the midst of this, and as they make it to space, 3 dreadnoughts emerge from hyperspace and combat the Star Destroyer using some ion weapons. The Lady Luck boards one of the dreadnoughts, with the commander wanting to meet Han again, but we don't know who the person is. Whereas Luke diverts, he escapes, and makes his way to Jomar. So a lot of action. Cool action. I like it. I like the little chaos here. This feels like the Battle of Hoth, weirdly, where it's like obviously not like in an intense of like it's a big, but it's like all right, Luke's going off this way. Oh, Han's going off this way.
I think Zahn was kind of cooking with the subversion of expectations in this chapter. I actually thought he did a really good job of being like, hey, the dreadnoughts come out of hyperspace. Oh, shoot, is that the Katana fleet? What's going on? And even, Lando says something similar, right? And that's what I thought. I'm like, okay, so the commander's Talon Card, right? Like,
that's what I thought.
In a while. So it's going to be revealed that, he went and got the ships. He got this big fleet. And then, no, it's not. No, this isn't the Katana fleet. Really fun chapter. I like this one. And anybody else thought that, I forget his name already, but the commander, did he remind you of Saw Gerrera, like a proto Saw Gerrera? Because he was too extreme.
The character that hasn't shown up yet?
Oh, my bad. Is he the next chapter? Yeah, my fault.
He's like not for another 3 chapters.
Oh, we don't come back to that for a while? Huh. I didn't know.
No, yeah. They go off into hyperspace and then we go back to Leia here. But we'll talk about Garmajan, okay? That's all I'll say.
Garmajan?
I might have a little mind blowing moment for Connor here. I don't think he knows. Does he know? But I'll tell about it later. But yeah, no, I like this chapter. I thought it was cool. The action sequence and everything.
Is it the Katana fleet? Is it actually?
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, well.
Did you read chapter 15, dog? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be mean.
Did they reveal that in chapter 15?
Well, it's like heavily implied. We'll get to it. But yeah.
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9.
Dark Force and it's rising.
Chapter 9. Back to Leia, or more so Kabarak. He shows up.
Gotta beware the dark forces.
Seth.
Dark forces at play.
Oh my god. Kabarak lets Chewbacca and 3PO come along. They arrive at Honoghr and find it mostly devastated from the battle between the Empire and Rebels some time ago. They see a Star Destroyer, which is the Chimera, and they think they're betrayed. Chewie starts to lash out at Kabarak, but and Leia tries to get him to stop, but he doesn't. So Kabarak uses kind of this stun weapon in the cockpit to knock him out, and assures that he didn't betray him. He was not expecting the Chimera to be there. They end up, instead of going to the main city of Honoghr, I don't remember what it's called, they go to Kabarak's village instead, until the Grand Admiral leaves the planet. We cut over to Thrawn, who is at this big Nogri ceremony in the main city, but Pelion is informed about the news of Kabarak's ship arriving and it having some sort of malfunction that seems a little bit off. And they couldn't scan it. Thrawn is told, and he recognizes that this was the lone survivor from the team on Kashyyyk. Thrawn speaks with Kabarak's clan leader, and they prep to go to his village, curious why he wouldn't land at the city for repairs, and trying to get to the bottom of what happened during his mission on Kashyyyk. So, I'm really enjoying the Leia, Kabarak, Nogri stuff, like a lot more than I thought I would. And having Thrawn be so close and like directly at odds, like we get that kind of close to that in Air, but it's more so he's more dealing with Card than anything. Whereas this is like very quickly he gets really close to Leia and Kabarak and Chewie and all of them, and it's like, I mean, even in a little bit where they're like in the same room as one another, you're like, oh dang, okay, things are heating up. But no, I like this, and I just love how protective Chewie is. Like I think Chewie is written very well. Of like I can see this happening in a movie right now. Any quick thoughts? Medal. His 3 medals. He's gotten 3 medals in canon, by the way.
Dude's an Olympian.
Yeah, he didn't get it in the movie, but he got in everything else.
Sick.
More with Leia in Chapter 10. They arrive at Kabarak's village. Leia meets with the matriarch, and who does. There's like a specific name. I just called her the matriarch because that's clearly what it is a play on. I think. What am I trying to say here? She does not respect Leia's lack of service to the Empire, but still agrees to protect her. Chewbacca informs them that the Empire is about to pull up to the town, and so the Nogri agree to hide and protect them because Kabarak has. Thrawn and the crew, and his crew investigate the village, having a summons in their kind of little town hall, which is called a duca. Kabarak comes up with some lies, but it's noticed that he's nervous. The tech crew analyzes Kabarak's ship for malfunctions, which actually seem plausible. They leave, but Thrawn decides to organize a makeshift probe droid to watch Kabarak. He's talking in the shuttle to Pelion for a scan crew to check the ship for. He also asks for the scan crew to check for evidence for the ship. And then they put their focus into finding Leia and making sure the Nogri are doing their jobs. So a lot of hasty, like kind of honestly nerve-wracking moments here. There's a lot of good tension that I enjoy, and I like the dynamic of Leia. What is it? What are they actually? I said matriarch, but like there's like a specific. It's like matriarch. Is that how you say it? Is that what it's called? You know what I'm talking about?
Say again. What was your question?
The Nogri chieftain lady.
Yeah, the lady that's in charge.
Yeah, is that what you're talking about?
She is a the English term is matriarch, but it's spelled like matriarch or something like that. It's got like a different Nogri name. Y'all, did you read the book? I'm just kidding.
I am reading chapter 15.
Yes,
and I see now that I don't know how I missed this, but yeah.
It is Maitrakh. So Maitrakh. I think that's how you say it.
My knock.
Hey, get in my truck. I'm sorry. It's okay, Connor. I forgive you. Chapter 11. Any thoughts? Sorry, I don't want to rush. I feel like I want to kind of skip ahead a little bit.
I think it's neat that like a cool callback to like episode 4 with like set up a scanning crew, set up a probe droid. Like Imperials are gonna Imperial. Like they've got the same tricks. Thrawn is being a little bit more clever with his tricks, but like they have all this technology at their disposal. Yeah, they don't have a lot of men to use it, but they have a lot of technology at their disposal. So I think that's kind of neat. That
like even the probe droid, he like retrofits. Like he's like, we don't need like a full size one, so they're like, let's modify to like make a smaller one. You know. Yeah.
So I just think that's cool.
Yeah. Even also another cool Thrawn moment is like when he's trying to get like I'm gonna get him here like because of the malfunction on the ship, but then it actually ends up
Chewie did it.
Yeah, later on it's like very quickly revealed that Chewie does it, and it's like, oh wow, like they kind of got the last minute one up on Thrawn to where he's like, I can't use that as a valid excuse to like I think even Thrawn is kind of like, you know, like he's like, man, I was kind of wrong about that. So it's like another moment where he was right, but the heroes are able to dupe him very slightly. So again, back to what Connor said earlier, is he's not, strategically impenetrable, if that makes sense. But yeah, now we get to good old the reveal character here. Chapter 11. Han and Lando arrive at the base with the dreadnoughts. I don't think the planet is named, but they find this dense kind of military encampment. Han is brought alone to the commander, who is former Corellian Senator Garm Bel Iblis. I have a piece of info about him, who had been presumed dead for a long time, so this is a big shock. Bel Iblis and Han actually had met, although Han doesn't really remember, when Han was a child in school, which is interesting, but it still kind of makes sense. Iblis had been keeping tabs on him, and Han questions the nature of Iblis's relationship to Braylea and kind of what's going on right to there. Back to Pelion, he reports through Thrawn in his private chambers. He finds out about the dreadnoughts over Newcov and that Han and Lando went with them, admitting his mistake of thinking they'd go to Polani. He forces to a capture. Sorry, what did I say? I forgot about this part. He forces. He gets a cap. Who is that?
I just imagine this is what Bel Iblis looks like. He's like a rebel officer from Star Wars Legion.
I can tell you exactly what he looks like, and it's not that. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, my goodness, Jesus.
Yeah,
that's just what like.
Hey, Seth, stop suggesting stuff.
I'm just gonna go ahead and drop a bomb. Garm Bel Iblis is in The Force Unleashed.
Is he?
Okay.
Yep. He's one of the main senators from the game. In the PS2 and Wii version, you actually
we all played the PS2 and Wii
he's
version
in the 360 and PS3 version. They just cut the levels because they were dumb. Okay.
Well, because I totally had played it on PS2.
Here he is. That's Garm Bel Iblis.
He just looks like a guy.
Here he is.
He just looks like
what mission is this?
Drellig.
Because I only played the PS2 version as a kid. What mission is this?
You go to Bespin and you rescue him from a Mandalorian who has a droid called a Basilisk.
A Basilisk war droid?
I do not remember that at all.
You remember how you have to go and rescue everybody? So obviously you rescue Bail from on Felucia. You rescue Leia on Kashyyyk. Mon Mothma, I think, is she's kind of off doing her own thing. She's not busted. And I believe you rescue Garm Bel Iblis on Bespin, and he's held hostage by a Mandalorian. It's here right here.
Would you click that? Right. Okay, go to your left. That.
What is this, dude?
That's a Star Wars miniature. I was just curious. Can you show his card right there? To your left? That. Huh. Okay. So he had a mini back in the day.
He did.
He had a mini back in the day.
Look at this handsome guy.
That's how I imagine Talon Card looking.
That's what I'm saying is I'm like, he looks just like what they make Talon Card look like in the comics, which is so interesting. See if I can pull up the picture.
Looks like Rick Rude.
See if I've got...
It's a wrestling reference.
Yeah, here's them on the Corellian Treaty with Starkiller. There's Mon Mothma, Bail. Wait.
Very cool. I had no idea. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is that game the same as the PS3 one?
So this is him in the PS3 version, like what he looks like, but they cut out some missions in that game.
Yeah, because I don't remember rescuing senators at all when playing that game.
The Wii and PS2 version is like a completely different game than the PS3.
Why are you coming at me with that? It's like, play this version. he's in the Force Unleashed.
That's a story for another day. There's a whole history to the Force.
I know that they integrated the the Wii movements or whatever into that one, and they had to change stuff because he has a reverse grip, doesn't he?
He doesn't reverse grip in the PS2 and the Wii version.
He only does it in one animation or his idle animation, but yeah. So Iblis is. I'm still unsure, what's going on fully with him. But he is a character. When I thought it was going to be Talon, and then it was him, I was like, I knew his first appearance was in this book, and I knew about him because of the Force Unleashed, and so I was like, I'm curious what's going on with him because there's some. We'll get into chapter 15. There's some accusations with him, but
he's an interesting character for sure.
Yeah. So
you guys didn't get Saw Gerrera vibes? No,
totally. Totally. He's like an old wartime vet. Man, I missed the fight.
And then he's not allowed to be part of the rebellion.
Exactly. Maybe he's too extreme.
No, he's not really a good guy, which I'm expecting. But
I don't see this. I mean, I could see the loose Saw comparisons, but it seems to be that Garm is he's at least from what it seems like he's not really that much of an extremist like Saw is, and he also chose not to be part of the rebellion. He was like, He's like, I just kind of want to do it. Whereas Saw was like, they were like, Saw, you got to get out of here, bro. You're crazy.
Save the rebellion. Save the dream.
Also, Garm is just over there sipping on his on his sangria or whatever, and he's just like, nobody, pal. I don't know.
We'll learn. That this character is going to be the linchpin for Han Solo's character arc going forward. I know nothing about this character, so this will be interesting. But the fact that Han has such a reverence for this guy, there's even a passage where he calls him sir. He's like, yeah, I don't normally do that.
It's he does it on instinct, which is so interesting.
Yeah, just reflexively, just saying calls him sir. And he has a moment in his head where he's like, man, I can't tell you how many people in the galaxy that I do that with.
Yeah.
And so I bet that it's going to be at least my speculation. Again, I've not read anything past chapter 15. I was good for the stream. And I'm expecting maybe this guy to turn out to be not who he says he is, and that's going to be a heartbreaking moment for Han. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. I completely agree. Back to Pelion. This is still in chapter 11. Back to Pelion. He reports to Thrawn in his private chambers. He finds out about the dreadnoughts over Newcov and that Han and Lando were there. About the Palani thing, I mentioned it already. He ends up, I believe, I don't know if I worded this right, but he ends up getting Niles Ferrier captured, and basically forces him to go find the dreadnoughts and reclaim them. Yeah. I believe Niles is already just captured at this point. Pelion informs Thrawn that there's Wookiee hairs all over Kabarak's ship, which assume means that he was captured and then let go. Which I'm glad that it's not immediately just like Chewbacca was on the ship. It was like, no, like they think a little bit more logically, I guess. But Thrawn preps a team. Yet again, he preps a team to threaten the Noghri and reinforce their loyalties. So that's why he's hanging around Honegger. But yeah, another little expositional scene in Thrawn's chambers. I'm assuming, I guess they captured Niles on Newcov during the whole Imperial raid thing, right?
That's what I assumed.
Okay, yeah. I was just curious. Any other thoughts? I know we kind of talked about the Garm stuff the most, but
right here, I liked this. I was just trying to find it. Just a small thing, but it says, but they were about to go to the Palani system. Thrawn finished for him. Yes, an error on my part. Obviously, something more important came up than their concerns for Akbar's reputation. I just like that Thrawn's, not arrogant enough to not admit his mistakes.
Yeah,
it's something that's been very consistent with Thrawn's character. Like, they make many note of the fact that he's not Vader. He's not just choking dudes left and right. And so a small thing, but just goes to how different of a character Thrawn is. And I think that makes him scarier. He's like, yeah, made a mistake. Hopefully we don't do that. Like, I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Right.
I like that he admitted his error openly, to one of his subordinates. I think that's an interesting character trait of Thrawn.
It's also interesting because he I don't think in this chapter, Thrawn, he admits the mistake, but he also doesn't realize why they went to Newcov immediately. Like, I don't think Thrawn's like, oh, that's why they went there. I think he's just, or maybe he does. I can't exactly remember, but yeah. Chapter 12. You
want to do 12 and 13 at the same time since they're kind of linked?
Yeah, they're like back to back. Yeah. Leia awakens the next morning and is brought to the Duca to speak with the matriarch. Chewbacca learns some new forms of fighting with Kabarak. They're kind of having a little combat session while 3PO is actually teaching the Noghri children history. Leia and the matriarch speak about the history of the Noghri people and how the Empire saved them from near apocalypse during that fight. They talk about kind of what happened with the environment. They feel an honorable service to the Empire. And Leia is kind of being implored to leave as soon as possible to not cause any more discord. But Leia realizes that she can't convince them to turn against the Empire, at least not at this stage. Even though the matriarch is explains a little bit of the discrepancies against the relationship of the Empire.
Well, it's mainly because of Vader, right? I mean, that's the thing here is like Vader was the one who kind of, in a way, cared about them.
Yeah,
so
and
I didn't take it as necessarily reverence to the Empire per se. It was reverence to Vader,
exactly,
specifically.
Yeah, and they're like, we would basically be dead. Like, we can't betray them, and so Leia's like, okay, well, I can't convince them otherwise right now. But they're alerted to Thrawn's shuttle coming back to the village imminently. Chapter 13, Leia and Chewie end up hiding in there's like a confession booth inside the Duca. And there's this very cool scene where Chewbacca climbs up the walls and they deactivate 3PO and like put him up in like the dish in the ceiling, which is cool. Thrawn and Rook enter the Duca, and Leia actually gets a good look at Thrawn. This is described very well in the book. But Thrawn accuses Cabarak of lying and about him going to meditate or whatever he said. And so he takes him as a prisoner. The matriarch backlashes, and so Thrawn quickly puts her in her place, and as a scare tactic, he orders a bunch of turbo laser blasts around the town. I don't think he actually destroys anything, but it's like basically like this close of like, I will blow it up if you don't step in line.
Fire.
Exactly. Yeah. Which that part is described super cool from Leia's perspective, where it's almost like she feels it from the Force, you know? But Thrawn lets Cabarak be publicly shamed in the main city of Nystau, that's what it's called, before taking him for interrogation. I loved these chapters. These were some of my favorite, just great dialogue between the matriarch and Leia being able to cut her losses, just like, I can just visualize the scene so well, and then down to like just the I don't know, like the vibe of as soon as Thrawn lands and like her hearing his voice and then him like coming into frame almost as she like finally can see him, and she's just like hearing everything happen. It's just really well written. Like I was locked in as I was reading. It was very, very entertaining.
100% with you, Grayson. These are some of my favorite chapters so far out of both books. What I really liked was some of the backstory about Vader with the Nogri, and it is implied that Vader maybe cared in a way about them. Like, he wasn't just going by the numbers with the Empire, right? Like, I should have wrote down specific passages, but like it said that he actually did his best to, like, he cleaned the soil, you know, like sending droids out to make it so they could try to grow or not be poisoned by the air, because that's what it was, right?
Yeah, but they're never going to be able to clean it, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, but they got all that toxic stuff out of the air, basically, right? And I know that ultimately it was to their own end, because, you know, the Nogri are a great fighting force, but I like that you can impress onto Vader, maybe he viewed the Nogri kind of like how he was as a kid, maybe. I know that that's post-air content, right? Like, right. But I don't know. I like to create some of my own headcanon here. That, like, maybe Vader saw something in the Nogri in himself and wanted to help them in his own way. And I think that what Zahn has done in both books is kind of interesting, where he's humanizing the villains just a little bit more. Vader obviously has been very humanized by the movies themselves because he's Anakin Skywalker, but with the Emperor, the same. So I really liked this backstory. And I think, again, speculation, because I haven't finished the book, what they're doing here is trying to sow the seeds that Vader's redemption could be the key to everything here for the Nogri, because the Nogri have such reverence to the Empire. And if they found out that Vader turned against the Empire himself, maybe then that's the thing that Leia needs to get across, right? Am I missing something here?
I think you're on the right track, Will. I think you're about to say what I was going to say.
I don't think I am. Grayson, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when 3PO is talking to the children, the matriarch makes mention that he is like, that 3PO is telling the kids of what Vader's final act was, of killing the Emperor. So they do know. So you're right. I think that is the no, I don't want to say the ace in the hole, but kind of like the first domino of like,
right? And I like how what this could do for Leia's character arc too, because this is something she struggles with. She doesn't want to be known as Lady Vader, right? But maybe that's not such a bad thing, because Vader, maybe his ultimate legacy with the Nogri people is that he ultimately turned against the Empire, and so can they.
Yep.
And she can look to her father as a hero for the first time ever. You know, I think that's cool. That's a really cool character stuff, in my opinion. What's up, Will?
That's what I was raising my hand for, is Leia having to go through the act of trying to convince all of the Noghri who Vader was, while also fighting against her doing it for herself, is the coolest part of all of this. I love the Leia stuff in this book.
I always love, and it's been an increasing thing in canon of like how much Leia detested Vader and the fact that she was like the daughter of Vader because of course, she was tortured by him and he did all these terrible things. And she was like I think it was even in that like Battle of Jakku comic, like Luke is kind of like trying to talk to her of like, Vader, like he did, like he ended up going back to the light side, and she's just kind of like, whatever, dude. It's not as intense here, but it is still the same concept of like, you know, she's using the Lady Vader thing obviously to her advantage, but like, it's like, that duality of they have to figure out that Vader is, I guess, a hero, and so does she.
Well, it's such a real thing, right? Like we can look to Luke and his selflessness as it's so inspiring, right? Like he was able to look past Vader's flaws and bring the good man out of him. But Leia really had to deal with that on a very personal level multiple times throughout her life. I mean, she was fighting in this fight forever. And it's just, there's something very profound there about her having to come to terms, of the sins of the father, but being like, but ultimately he did make a good choice, but does that absolve him of his past sins? Well, no, it doesn't absolve him of his past sins. But what legacy can he lead on? And like it or not, Leia, you are part of that legacy, and you can make the name Vader mean something to these people. That's not, the dark figure that you knew. I think that is so interesting and so cool.
Yeah. Yes, Will.
The more that I think about Leia and Vader and her having to take on the name Lady Vader and how much that must sting is so awesome. I think too, like Connor, to your point, Leia from her time as princess and general and all of this, of like being so deeply knit into the foundation of the rebellion, knew who Vader was long before Luke did. So the realization of Vader for Luke of like the I am your father, when she figures that out from Luke, it's almost like it's surprising that Leia doesn't have the same like explosion of emotion that Luke does, of like the entirety that like Leia's like upset, I guess, where she's more in denial than anything else, I think, when it comes to like, oh, Vader's like, you're my brother and Vader's our father kind of deal. Whereas Luke, obviously, it's like, no, that's impossible. But like for Leia to have to deal with that, knowing that the person she's been fighting against this entire time, and obviously Luke too, but for such a longer amount of time, like for the entirety of Leia's childhood and all of this stuff of going against the Empire and hatred for the Empire and stuff, it's like it's been Vader at the bottom of all of that. So for Luke, I think it's a little bit different, where I see him as more sheltered on Tatooine as a child. Like, yeah, the Empire and like going into Mos Eisley and to the different spaceports and stuff like that, and like seeing stormtroopers going around and like doing basic checks on stuff. But like for Leia, it's so deeply rooted in her base of rebellion. So it's just crazy.
Leia's a lot more hardened too, right? Like I know there's that meme about when Obi-Wan dies and she's the one comforting Luke. It's like, well, she's the one who knew him, right? Yeah. And she's not upset about it. But I mean, really, that is a character trait that she has going forward. And I know that there's a little bit of like real world stuff, like with Return of the Jedi. We didn't know deeply all this lore we do now, and that's probably why she doesn't have that reaction. But I think that we can carry that character trait of hers as like she has her emotions on lockdown, whereas Luke doesn't. And that's kind of a unique thing about Star Wars in general, is how we play with emotions and how emotions dictate not only yourself but your power, right?
Probably why they wanted to train her too. Like other than Leia, I mean, sorry, they wanted to train Leia above Luke because of that trait, which I never really thought about before.
Well, I think that it's interesting because Leia and
she
Luke
already hated her dad.
They have very different skills, and this is one of them. And I think at least in my opinion, to get real speculative here, it made Luke ultimately the better choice for that job, but Leia was needed for this job. You need both sides of the coin. Like Luke being so like wet clay, but Leia is very hardened. I don't think that you could get her to do the job quite in the same way. She would maybe be more easily to break, but the fact that Luke was softer made him the right choice for the job, which is ultimately when he throws down his sword. Would Leia throw down her sword? I don't know that she would. But it makes her, that's why I love the dichotomy of the two characters and how they both have such different reactions to I am your father. Obviously, Luke heard it from the horse's mouth, but Leia didn't. Luke looks at it like, man, this could be me. Leia looks at it as like, oh my gosh, you are my ultimate enemy. And it's like, so I love the differences here.
Yeah. Yeah, Will.
I would say if Leia was the one to like be sought out as trained kind of in the same vein as Luke, I think Leia, as much as she is hardened, I think the way she is so stubborn like her father and so set in her emotions makes her a very good diplomat like her mother. But like her father, I kind of would say that if she was put in that situation, maybe she would be more like Mara Jade, of like just heads on, like how Seth, you said, like there's a reason why Mara Jade's on point. It's like Luke's gonna be like, oh well, maybe we can talk to him through his mouth, like where Leia would just be like, no, I'm gonna kill this guy when it comes to Vader. You know what I mean?
I think that Leia sees the world a little bit more black and white.
Yeah.
Than like Luke, who sees it, that he early on had to understand that.
Luke has an indomitable heart. I think Leia has an indomitable mind, which is what makes them very interesting and like a great kind of two sides of a coin. And you need both. That's what's great about the two characters is sometimes you need a Leia, sometimes you need a Luke.
Yeah.
And it's fun to put her in a situation where now she's having her empire moment, to circle back to the book here with the Nogri, like what you said, like the Lady Vader thing has to cut so deep. Whereas if somebody called Luke Lord Vader here, I don't think he would be so bothered by it.
No.
And he wouldn't have to deal with all of this, deep turmoil like Leia does here. So it's very cool. I like all this stuff with Leia, the Nogri, Lord Vader, Lady Vader.
There's a difference between soul and spirit.
I love her relationship with the Nogri. Like Kabarak has actually become a pretty enjoyable character, and again, her like dynamic with the matriarch and stuff has been. It's just I don't know. It's a cool back and forth. I'm gonna do chapter 14, and we'll have one last chapter. This one's a little bit lengthier. Before I forget, we're coming on the. I keep looking over there, like I think my camera's normally there, but it's not. It's here now. TFTA giveaway. Put it in the chat for your chance to win. Just saying. Chapter 14, we go back to Luke, who arrives at Jomark. He scans the planet and finds probably the most likely place to land and where Sabaoth would be. He finds this castle mansion on. By the way, this I just have to mention this before I forget. It's on like a mountain with a lake on top of the mountain, and then there's an island on top of like the lake. It's so sick. Like and it's a real geographical thing, by the way. Like I looked it up, I was like, does this thing exist? Because it's like saying it's like a ring lake. These are real geographical formations that like happen in real life. So when I like looked that up, I was like, dude, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I think it's like volcanic cone with lake. I looked it up when I was reading it, and I thought it was super sick.
That's my favorite ice cream.
Cosmopolitan?
Here it is. Cosmopolitan. Present.
I love you, Seth.
Here we go.
I mean, I gotta say something.
So. This is like this. Like imagine like or like the castle's here, like this, like the town and stuff is down here, or even something like this. Like, because even in the comic book, it looks like this, but with like a giant island in the middle. So very cool, like really cool. You can tell when we talk to Zahn briefly, like he has an appreciation for environment. And what just happened? Are we good? Am I there? Okay. For like geography and for habitats and stuff. Camera in focus. Yes, Seth.
I think it's sick that like in Legends, a lot of the bad guys rock castles. Like Vader's castle was originally a thing before it became a thing, but for Rogue One, and I think it's neat that Jeruis has a he also rocks a castle.
Wizards.
He had an old castle, and now he's got a new castle. But like, it's funny because I think even in like the first chapter, he's like, this place is kind of a dump, you know. Like he's like, it's like this old castle, but it's cool, and he talks about like the lore of it and everything. But anyway, Luke lands, he finds Sabaoth, and they speak, and it's very clear that Sabaoth is way off temper. He's offbeat, and he just kind of has this superior standoffish attitude, especially when it comes to the Force and like lesser life forms. And he also is like doesn't really want to train Luke to be a better teacher. He's like, just bring him to me. I'll teach. Like, you want your sister to be trained? You want their kids to be trained? Yeah. Just bring them to me. Don't even worry about that nonsense. But they take a cart down to the village, down the mountain. They sense a conflict in one of the houses, so Joraus enacts his judgment on the matter, very differently than the way Luke mediates the argument early on. He zaps a guy. One of the guys goes for a weapon, and Joraus attacks him. And I put here that he believes that pain is the only way lessons can be taught. We cut to later. Luke steps away from the castle and speaks to R2, and they both express their doubts about the nature of Sabaoth, and Luke is just like, this guy is not what I expected him to be. And he even talks about how Yoda was not the way he expected him to be, but in the opposite way. Like, it's almost like he goes to Yoda expecting this great warrior, and he finds this kind of this wizened sage, and then he goes to Sabaoth expecting someone like Yoda, and it's this guy who's kind of a hard ass, and just very, very bipolar. But Luke speculates if he could be insane, and questions if it's worth the time and effort to be here with everything going on in the galaxy, but he decides to stick with it, hoping to help Sabaoth. So, loved this chapter. Finally.
That chapter so far.
It's really good. Yes, Seth?
I really dig the fact that is it Jeruis? I'm sorry. I'm saying it?
Yeah, Jeruis? As far as we can tell, this version is Jeruis or Joraus.
Okay, Joraus. That he's kind of teaching like how Palpatine does. He like keeps Luke under his thumb, and I like that. That should be like, it's the exact opposite of how Yoda and Obi-Wan taught him.
Yep.
So I think that's neat.
It's cool. I like that Luke is also, now that he does have some experience with some Jedi Masters, he's not just like, oh, well, like, if this was, say, like Luke found Sabaoth in Empire Strikes Back, like he would have just been like, oh, this is what Jedi are like, but yes, well,
I'm very happy you said that, because I wrote that down. Sabaoth, or Joraus, or however we want to, Joraus, Cabaoth, or however people say it on the internet, I feel like is the way that Luke went into Empire thinking that Yoda was gonna be.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I like that even sows doubt within, because Luke, you mentioned it earlier, Grayson, he's like, man, I thought that Yoda was going to be like this, and now this guy, he doesn't know what's right.
Yeah. He's like, what is the truth?
His gut is telling him this is wrong, and this guy is not a Jedi like he should be. But he's thinking to his past and all these other things. Like, I don't sense, because he doesn't sense that he's a dark Jedi like Vader and Palpatine. And he's like, but I don't know. I don't know what to believe here.
Yeah.
I love the delivery of information in this chapter. It is so cool. Like the payoff to all the Jedi cop stuff earlier, where it's like, why is Luke mediating all the time? Well, now here's why, because you get this moment where he's being forced to mediate, and then Jorus electrocutes the two guy, or the one guy rather. And all of a sudden Luke's like, nah, man, like I'm not here for that. And I even wrote down at this moment, I put in all caps, that's my Luke right there.
Yeah.
Who he's like, you know what? He looks in himself and says like, no, this happened to me, and a bad guy did this to me. Like, this isn't how Jedi
you know what?
act.
Again, unintentional parallel. It reminds me so much of when in Revenge of the Sith, when Palpatine is like, leave him or we'll never make it. And Anakin's like, is like, no, I got to save him. You know, like, that ain't cool, dude.
His fate will be the same as ours.
Right. Yeah. Great moment. That reminds me a lot of that, where obviously it's unintentional because Revenge of the Sith did not exist for another 11 years or something. Like for Luke, I mean, it's an obvious parallel to the earlier chapter, but for Luke to be like, dog, you whack. Like, but also for Luke to be like, you know what? Like, all of this stuff is going on, but like, maybe I can help him, you know, like maybe he's just been alone for so long and now he needs it.
Yes. That part right there where he's like, you know what? I'm going to stay because I can help this guy. I'm like, that's my guy right there. That's him. That's the Luke Skywalker I know. He just met this guy that's like Palpatine level, maybe bad. He's electrocuting people. And he's like, you know what? I can fix him.
I mean, he didn't give up on his dad.
I can fix him.
Talking about being a Luke Skywalker fanboy, I feel like sometimes us Luke Skywalker fanboys get painted in a bad rap. Like, we just want Luke to be out there cutting down dark troopers. No, this is what I want. I want to see Luke doing this kind of stuff.
And the reason, even with the dark trooper thing, the reason that works and makes it awesome is like, there's not people in those suits, you know, and so that's another thing. Like, he's there.
It's cool to get a little fun sometimes too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not immune to that. That scene's awesome, but I'm just saying, like, when I say I want my Luke Skywalker on screen, like, that's it. And that's why some parts of The Last Jedi do really work for me. Like him walking out there, facing down, you know, and then ultimately sacrificing himself. Dude, that's why
give us an animated Luke show, please.
Right? Yeah, I know. But so a couple lore things I just wanted to bring up that I found really interesting. Obi-Wan wasn't a master in this, you know, prequel time period.
You're right.
Brought up here. I think that's interesting. It makes sense if, again, you pretend the prequels don't exist. It's like, okay, Obi-Wan was a Jedi Knight, and
same as your father
was the master, right? That's why it's like a level up thing. Whereas if they were to reveal it during a time of A New Hope and Empire, it's like they're both masters. Well, I feel like it doesn't have that stair step quality of like, okay, I learned from this guy, but now I need the master. I got to go to Yoda.
Obi-Wan even says that. He's like, you got to go to Dagobah and train with the Jedi who trained me.
Yeah. So I think that's cool. I like that. I'm also curious of your guys' opinion on, we get some, Luke has his own Force Ghost theory here, which I found really intriguing, where his idea, where he was like, okay, maybe the reason I could see Obi-Wan was because, and Yoda and my father, is because when they all died, somehow they latched their Force essence onto me because I was the nearest Force user around. Yeah. And so maybe what happened to Jorus is when he went out on this outbound flight mission, all 5 other Jedi Masters died, and now their spirits are kind of haunting him, and it's messing with his head. And I think I like that he even brings this up like it's just his own little game theory here.
Yeah.
But I kind of subscribe to it a little bit, to be honest, because that's always how I viewed, like, why can't Qui-Gon appear to Luke? Well, you know, Luke didn't know Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would go so far as like when they have to die near you, but you just had to know them in life. You know, that's why Qui-Gon is kind of appears around Obi-Wan, and why he appears to Anakin, you know, on Mortis. That's I kind of like this, and
it makes sense. Even I guess the only one that, obviously, because they didn't really know how they wanted it. the one thing I will say, and again, because it's pre-prequel era, they probably couldn't touch it, is, of course, like, you want to see Luke interact with Force Ghost of Anakin, but it's like, I'm sure that was off the table, right? So that would be the only like discrepancy, I guess, to that theory, at least in this book, not obviously in canon and after we have prequel content.
Well, I mean, like, even like I kind of buy this for canon is what I'm getting at. It's like I kind of like this idea.
I that's what I'm saying though, is I'm like, then I guess, well, I mean, I guess for canon it would make sense with. Is
there an instance in canon where a Force Ghost appears to a character that wouldn't fit this idea?
Rey.
That's
the voices of everybody.
She just hears voices, right? So that's not quite.
I mean, that's still them speaking through the Force.
Yeah, and that was I saw a post from Retney recently where like they described that like it's because in that scene like where everything is just
like total balance.
Or total like it's like oneness in the Force, you know. So she's just like, it's almost like in that moment when she's like it's like an out of body experience for her. Yeah. But I mean, when you think about the people who she was close with and she does see their Force ghosts, it's just she doesn't ever see Yoda. It's just Luke and Leia, I guess. Yeah. And I don't know if Ben ever learned how to do it, but yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it would make sense. I guess the only reason for this is that they just.
I don't know if they'd ever nail it down like that. I like that idea because otherwise you kind of get into that situation. It's like, why isn't Yoda appearing to all these people all the time? Why doesn't Obi-Wan? And I get it. It's like they're ethereal beings now and they have different ways that they think and time spans are different and all these things. And I like that. I don't want it to ever be fully explained.
Yeah, I was about to say the mystery, like with Mortis and with the World Between Worlds and Force Ghost, it's a thing. It's like I like the little breadcrumbs, but I never need it to be like, here's the whole loaf, you know?
Yeah, I get you. What a great phrase.
Even with Yoda in Rebels with Ahsoka,
Ezra,
and Ezra, like when they're in the temple and he appears to all three of them for their visions, like that's not technically a Force Ghost at that point, but like.
Yeah, that's more of like a
projection,
right? I guess. But like, it makes sense why it was Yoda. And then you think about like the World Between Worlds with Ahsoka for Anakin, and then at the end of Ahsoka with Anakin's Force Ghost. Like, I know,
because
I know technically, like we don't see her look at it, and she turns away, and then it shows Anakin's Force Ghost, and it's not I've always Return of the Jedi where he's leaning up against a tree and she's looking at him. Like, I know we don't see the eye connect. But I've always, like you said, like it makes sense. I really hope she saw Force Ghost Anakin in that.
I was about to say, for that scene, I've always interpreted it that like at first we're seeing it from Sabine's perspective, where you're like, she's just like, I just thought I sent something, and then you go to it when she leaves the scene, it goes to Ahsoka and she smiles, and then it's like, and here he is, like she did see him, right?
Yeah. I've always, and that backs up the theory too.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's the same thing of like it's funny to think about later on how the one movie with Qui-Gon is called The Phantom Menace, but like you just take the word phantom out of it. Like for all of the Force Ghost stuff, like it makes it more of a, if you want to latch on to something, I guess the closest term that I can think of is like a haunt or something like that in terms of ghost stuff, where they're kind of strapped to the plane that they've died in. And then how we were talking about earlier with Sidious, where Leia flies through and she feels that like dark echo, that Force essence is kind of wherever they died.
Yeah.
When you think of the word phantom, like, I mean, Qui-Gon, that's literally his whole deal and like what his name is based on. So I think your point, Connor, until I see otherwise, where it's like the ghost of Ki-Adi-Mundi pop up to Ezra Bridger, like as of right now,
he's like, hey,
yeah,
I got to clarify something. Here's my birthday.
Yeah, he's like, guess what my birthday is?
It's just like, what?
Ezra Bridger, you forgot my birthday, and he's looking up.
Yeah, there was something else I was going to say about that, but I will say this book, the breadcrumbs with Outbound Flight, has made me want to read that book so much more. And I hear it's really good. So I don't know what's going on there, but yeah. Shall we wrap up with chapter 15?
Yeah, chapter 15.
Woo. Okay. Remember,
honestly, you picked a bad place to end it because this one would have been fun to end on.
I know. I should have just I obviously hindsight is 2020, but it is what it is. There's, I guess, a little plot thread here. But hey, TFTA giveaway. Last chance. We are on the last chapter before we wrap up the stream, and we will pick the winner. Yeah. Chapter 15. Han and Lando. I miswrote that. They catch up with Bel Iblis over some wine. I think they call them like Twizzlers or something. I don't know. They're speaking about details about basically where Garm has been during the rebellion, why he chose not to be part of the rebellion. He also expresses some concern with Mon Mothma's leadership, that she's going to be like some pseudo emperor, which is super interesting. They try to ask him some questions about what exactly his relationship is to Phalia, and basically like Phalia helped them out during some stuff during the main part of the war, but they don't they didn't really quite figure out what Phalia wants in return. But Lando does not trust Iblis at all, and he thinks it's all a setup. He doesn't even think this is the real guy. They head off to their quarters, and Lando kind of incidentally discovers that one of the chairs has been reupholstered, and underneath the upholstery is an original kind of blue gold color. And that is the only time that color was ever used was on the Katana Fleet dreadnoughts.
The Dark Force.
The Dark Force, yes. And they're trying to figure out, like, okay, is this, can it actually be the Katana Fleet? Like, is that why they didn't want us inside the ship when they took us here? So they decide to try to confirm by going and looking at there's a repeater display that was in kind of the main lounge, and they're going to look for access of that. And that's where we end off. Connor was right. It would have been better to end off on the last one, but that's okay. You do get the drop of that. Maybe Garm has the Katana Fleet.
Yeah. Well, after you very publicly called me out earlier on my misread there, I did go back and read chapter 15 while we were chatting, and yeah, I don't know how I forgot about that. That was a pretty big drop there. So,
so I don't know if you have it written down, and I can probably pull it back up when they were on Rishi. Card was explaining to Mara, how many ships were part of the Katana Fleet? Because
I don't remember.
I don't remember what they say. Garm says that they have 6 dreadnoughts. 3 of them saved Han and Lando. So I'm trying to remember. I'm like, was it 6 total part of the Katana Fleet? I would look it up, but I'm afraid I'm going to get spoilers.
Right.
I'll
look it up.
Say, let the guys who've already read it.
I'm interested to see where this goes with Garm, because my current, where my head's at is like, this guy is fake. He's either not real, somebody installed by either Thrawn or Card. Because I don't know how Thrawn would really know about it. Well, I mean, he would know about it, but maybe not like where it is. It's already been established that Card is the only person who did know where it was at. So,
that was the line in Air when Thrawn shows up to Merker. There's a part where they're trying to get ships, and he's like, does he know? But yes, Will, Seth.
Do you want to tell him, Seth? Do you want to tell him, though?
I mean,
it's a fun number.
It is.
Is it 66?
You could tell him.
No, you can tell him. I just didn't know if you wanted to, if it was a spoiler or not, of like.
Not that I can tell.
If it would.
I'm just trying to remember how many ships Card says. I can pull it up if I need to not spoil myself.
You could
say. I don't remember how many ships Card says, but
I can pull it up real quick. I think that was in chapter 4. Hold on.
The total number is.
Nope. Chapter 5. Oh my gosh.
Just tell him, Seth.
No, don't say anything. I'll go find it. Okay. A handful of dreadnought cruisers cut down a crew to 2,000, 16,000 men each. What does it say? He said how many it was.
Does it?
200 ships.
Well, that's the original.
The original Katana Fleet, at least what he said pre-Clone Wars, that there was 200 ships that were affected by a virus in a dormant state. And then
I think that there's.
I wonder if this is maybe just part of it. Like maybe they didn't all fall out of hyperspace in the same place.
Well, there's less than that.
Oh, yeah. Don't spoil it.
I'm not saying anything, but there's less than, like, there was 200 to start out with, or 200 to start out with, but like in this era, there is not that many.
Trying to see if I was about to say, does he say he sold a map? You'll never hear about the fleet anymore. It was over 15 years ago. Blah blah blah. Dreadnoughts. He discovered a pair of dreadnoughts lying directly in our path. We just assumed. It turned out to be a fatal account. Blah 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 blah. There were 6 of us left. More than just 2 dreadnoughts. Okay, he's saying that he found all 200 of them, but maybe that's cap. I guess we'll find out later on, huh? We know at least we know that Garm. I'm excited to get back to Mara and Talon after this development, because now I'm like, okay, Garm likely has 6 of these dreadnoughts. So I'm like, does Talon know about that? Does Thrawn know about that? Like, is there any link there?
Well, it's interesting that they've set up to everybody kind of needs ships. And now there's this thing that can provide the ships. And it's going to be kind of a battle
ships
of who gets the resource.
Don't require
first.
A lot of people to man them.
Yeah. So pretty huge for both sides. That's like you said, it's an interesting development where now you have kind of 3 factions who are going to want them. Yeah. And what's the deal with Garm? Is he who he says he is, or is he not? They're kind of sowing some doubt there. And it's like, why reupholster everything so that you don't know? Because who's really going to have that obscure piece of information about the upholstery other than Lando Calrissian?
Yeah, because Lando's like, I looked it up. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
I am. Yeah, I am as well. We've got so we will be back in 2 weeks, not 1 week. I'm sorry, guys. Because I got sick. There's no way I can I'm so busy. So we're gonna push part 2 to 2 weeks from today. But don't worry, Last Command will be as scheduled for part 1 and part 2 of that. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this giveaway for people to get their last entries in?
Hashtag TFTA giveaway. Let's do it.
Hashtag TFTA giveaway.
A dark force rising.
We've got 15 entries.
That's the entire time I was reading this, Will. Oh my God.
Wait, is that actually part of the lyrics?
No, it's
a bad moon.
Oh, I was going to say, are you just like freaking
CCR, baby?
Okay. Oh, we're at the 15 now. Okay, I'm doing it. We're at 15. I'm drawing. 3, 2, 1. May the force be with you. Oh, we're flipping through. I probably
Did the worst generation get in?
Can you share that?
I probably
screen share, quick.
Did the worst generation get in?
I'm sorry. I will screen share it now. Who is the worst generation? Oh, I don't think the worst generation got in. I'm sorry, my friend, but I will share my screen. We do have you. No, we can't do that now.
Well, they didn't won't. See it. When they'll never know who won the first time. It's up to you.
The thing is, if I draw again, I think the person who won will be taken out of the running.
That's okay. We're doing more giveaways.
Yeah, we are doing more giveaways. In fact, I guess it's probably the best thing to announce now that from here on out,
we'll talk about the next giveaway next time. Get over here.
No, I'm leaving some anticipation. From here on out, for every stream, depending on the book. So we did Air, because we already did Air. Next stream, we will be giving away a copy of Dark Force Rising. When we get to Last Command, we will be giving away a copy of Last Command. And from books going on thereafter. Yeah, so all right.
TFTA tradition.
The winner of the copy. Drum roll, please. Please. I don't know. We have Star Wars Gazer.
Star Wars Gazer.
Is one.
Is he in the chat?
Is he in the chat?
Gazer.
Mr. Gazer.
Show yourself.
Are you there, buddy?
Reveal yourself.
Either put in the chat or
2 minutes and then re-roll.
It's okay. That seems fair.
Yeah. Speaking of CCR, if we want to while we have 2 minutes, I really wanted them to use, if they were going to use anything for that Andor trailer, I feel like a CCR song would have been way cooler to make it that Vietnam feel. Yeah, you know?
My name is Cassian Andor, and I got 17,000 jackets. Gazer, are you there, buddy? I know you're there, bro. I know you be out here.
I think he's live right now on his show.
Oh.
Yep.
What is the rule of thumb? Are we re-rolling?
Yep.
He's not
here.
Yeah,
all right.
Gotta be in the chat.
I think I don't know if any new entries will apply, but we're gonna draw again.
Yeah, I saw him. I saw Worst Generation in there.
Good.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Oh,
Hey,
Connor do it.
The Dune Sea wins.
Hey, Quinlan Voss!
No way.
Admiral Enigma. Hey,
wow.
he really called it. Quinlan, you there, buddy? You there? Are you hanging out with Saj? My Saj. You just sent a comment 2 minutes or not even a minute ago.
Yeah, we gotta wait. Same amount of time.
Hey, there he is.
Well,
Quinlan,
I have your information still because you won a giveaway like a month ago.
That's awesome.
I'll get that sent out to you soon.
Well, I got the copy of Dark Force Rising right here. So be back. Next stream, we'll be giving this away. Unfortunately, this is not signed, but, it's still pretty cool. Quinlan, maybe you win again and you round out your full collection.
Grayson, you should sign it.
Yeah, I'll be like, I'm not Timothy Zahn. He let me put Mara Jade in my campaign. Yes, should we all sign it? Awesome. Guys, that was a great stream. That was a lot of fun discussions about the book and beyond. We will be back in 2 weeks at a unspecified time, but probably anywhere between 7 and 8:30 Eastern time. Keep your eye out. Any final thoughts before I do we have where's the oh, we don't have it here. That's
Thanks for being here. It was a great time.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. This is a great opportunity. Get to reading. Reading's fun.
Look to our coming at sunlight on the 5th day.
Yeah.
And remember, if it's not in our records, it does not exist. Goodbye.